All right. Had a little camera difficulties, but I think we got it squared away here. I think we good. We good. We good. All right. We'll give it a second for a couple people to file in. Then we'll get it running. Let me just go grab some water. For those on Instagram, if you saw me pop in and out, I was having little camera issues, but I think we got it fixed now. We're good to go. All right, so let me close this. Let me close this. And let me close. Oh, nope. What did I do? Okay. Nope. What did I do, man? Hang tight. Hang tight. Open that up. Hold on. Man, this thing is cutting up. Camera's off again. I don't know what the hell's going on with this shit, man. Hang tight, people. We having a problem with this camera again. I don't know what the fuck happened. Hold on. Let me see something real quick. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Hold on. All right, here we go. Had to keep that. Nope. Went off again. Hold on. Let me see what's going on out here. If it's showing anything. Oh, it is showing. All right, but it's showing black on the other end. I'm just got to leave it up. I don't know why it's showing that. All right, let me just do a little editing. All right. All right, we'll just keep it there. Somebody just type in. I'm showing it actually on the screen. Somebody just type in if they could see me, because it's not showing on the StreamYard. So I'm gonna leave it here. It's showing when I go on. Can somebody just type in that you're able to see me? Somebody that's in the room. All right. All right. Something can't see myself in the studio. I could see it on the YouTube. All right. Just want to make sure. All right. Let me just do a couple quick editing things, and then we'll get going. I have to take a look at that when I get some more time. But I've been messing around with it for about 30 minutes. All right. I'm going to keep this, try to keep it kind of short. Not too long. I know I always say that shit, but all right. Let's do a little editing. Just give me 2 seconds. This was really last minute. All right. All right. Man, I don't know why it's doing that shit bugging. We'll work with it as long as you guys can see it. Let's put today on there. We don't need that. All right, I think we're good. All right, I'm gonna save that. And I think we are good. All right, still showing black there. Let me just double check one thing real quick. Don't know why. Make sure it's still showing on here. I'll keep this up just to make sure. All right, it's showing on there. We just keep that muted. I'll just have to roll with it there. All right, so everybody can hear, see. All right, cool. All right, I'll just have to roll with it on here. Pops up there. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but anyway. All right. All right, looks like everything's as functional as it's gonna be. All right, so let me just go grab some water and we'll get cracking here. All right. All right, hang tight. Now that I got to work. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but hold on. All right. All right, let's get the cracking here. All right. I want to welcome everybody to the show. Like I said, I was having a little camera issues. It looks like we're okay. We'll go from there. All right. All right. So this was again late, a little bit late last minute, but we'll try to get a little something in here. I want to, Frontal Blessings though, I want to welcome everybody. If I didn't greet you personally, due to the fact that it's kind of late, I'm kind of going to get right into the announcements, and then we'll get going. Just a couple things I want to kind of talk about. All right. So let's run. Well, first and foremost, since we are in the month of October, right? Today is October 6th. Obviously, the key thing on the agenda is the 5th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference. We're pretty busy right now, putting the finishing touches and wrapping it up. I can tell you a little bit more of where we're at. First and foremost, though, now is obviously the time to sign up and reserve your spot. That'll be taking place again this month. It's a 4-day event. Begins on Thursday, October 27th, for the meet and greet, which is 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That first night, meet and greet is what it is. Everybody just kind of meets each other. We kick it for a little bit, get that out of the way. And then on Friday, the 28th and Saturday, the 29th, the itinerary is pretty much the similar as far as the format and time frame. So we begin the classes and workshops on, excuse me, we begin the classes and workshops 9 a.m. sharp. We run them to about 4 o'clock. And then we convene and come back about 7:30. And then there's a group ritual on both nights, on Friday and Saturday, followed by a group dinner. I can tell you some of the presentations we do have. We have a brother coming, Brother Demetrius Clark will be doing a vampire presentation live at the event. We have Brother Kevin coming through doing something new with Gematria. Obviously, I'll be doing something with Santa Muerte. We'll talk a little bit further about that. We have a candle magic workshop, how to do correct petitioning, charging your candles. There are going to be some hands-on workshops. That's part of the plan, the rituals. I'm going to keep that in the lid. But I can tell you we have a initiatic type of ritual prepared for Friday evening. So we're finishing formatting it. We pretty much have everything. We're just trying to see how we're going to slot everything in. All right. And then on Sunday, the 30th is a open question and answer discussion. Okay. And that's from noon to 4 p.m. And that pretty much finishes the event off. All right. So there's 2 ways. Obviously, you can attend live. Shoot me an email. I'll send you the information how you can register, sign up, come live. I want to start buying your tickets now. As far as travel, because you know how that could be. The longer you wait, the more expensive it becomes. Or you can attend virtually. Attending virtually gives you access to all 3 days of classes and workshops. So either way, shoot me an email. Let me see. Do we have the ticker on? I don't think we do. Hold on. Let me put that on the bottom. I forgot to put the banner on. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Hold on. What happened to the banner going across the bottom? Give me a sec. There we go. All right. Got it on the bottom now. I forgot to turn it on. You can shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com. Put in the subject box so I see it, because with all the emails that come through right now, like I say, we're focusing on the conference, getting it done. So those emails I see first right out the gate. And just put in the email what you want information on, either to attend live in person, which we do have a head cap for that, or a cutoff, or you want to attend virtually, and I'll get that information out to you. Okay. But now's the time, because again, we're today at October 6th, and we're exactly 3 weeks out, right? Today makes 3 weeks out before we actually begin the conference. And this month, as I said, last video, is pretty packed between Patreon, between the conference. There's a lot going on this month, right? So we're trying to get this all in. As I told you, it's the busiest time of the year for me, leading up to Thanksgiving. And then Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, as I've said many times before, I take a break. I don't do much. I kind of just enjoy the holidays, and it's my time end of the year to recharge. I kind of take it easy for those 2 months, right? So again, now's the time to sign up. I'm going to get into the, again, this month's class schedule on Patreon. I encourage you to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. That's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Check out the Patreon page. I recommend tier 3 because that gives you access to all the monthly classes. That's 3 private classes a month with myself and the Patreon family, and 1 monthly ritual. It's much more affordable that way. You could still sign up individually. People still do it. Don't really know why. But I guess if you're just interested in a particular class, you can sign up individually. Each individual class is $56. All the information is available on all of the platforms, which we are live on right now. You can find all the information I'm telling you, the ticker going down on the bottom of the screen right now, in the community section here on YouTube. Also, check out the Primordial Chaos Facebook page. That's 2 words. And Primordial Chaos 9, all 1 word, on Instagram. And we are live on all 3 of those platforms right now. So all the information on how to register and sign up for the classes are there, the ones I'm about to run through. But again, I encourage you, your best value is patreon.com Baniti, Baniti. That's the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page. The amount of content on there's a lot. And as I said before, when you join today, you get access to everything prior, from the beginning of the channel to the present moment and moving forward. And Patreon finally made an adjustment that they're going to be starting the beginning of the month. Now the billing cycle, because there's been a little confusion with that, and Patreon needed to fix it, and I'm glad they did. So now when you join Patreon, whatever day you join, that is your billing cycle. That's the next time you get charged. It used to just be the first of the month. And I'm glad they changed that, because what tends to happen, and let me put this out there for some people, and I've mentioned it before, the bad thing about that old cycle is if you joined on the 20th of a month, Patreon would bill you for that month the day you joined in September. And I want to make sure people hear this. And then 10, 11 days later, when the first rolls around, you're going to get billed again. And it is in the agreement when you sign, but most people don't read it. So keep that in mind. The old way, if you joined in the middle of the month, towards the end of the month, they're going to bill you for that month that you joined. And then when the first comes, they bill you again. So that's changed now. They've given us as creators the option to set up cycle billing, and I just set it up today. So what happens now is if you join today, the 6th of the month, right, you're going to get billed again the 6th next month. If you join the 10th of a month, you're going to get billed on the 10th of the following month, which to me should have been like that from jump. But apparently there was a lot of issues with this. It's something that a lot of people have brought to their attention, and they have finally fixed it. So for all people seeing this video, newer people that might be interested in joining Patreon, you can now plan that if whatever day you join, if you join today, it's the 6th, tomorrow's the 7th, your next charge will be the 7th of next month, which that to me is the way they should have did it from jump. Where the old cycle, you always got billed on the 1st, regardless of what day you joined. All right. So that gives you full access, tier 3. And the amount of content I have on the Patreon page, I don't think anybody's offering it, in my opinion. And I say that out of confidence, not arrogance. So check it out, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. If you're interested in a spiritual reading or a consultation, I offer a variety of different demonic telepathic readings, shadow work readings, which we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Which is a great place to start. People always looking, what direction should I be going into? What should I be doing? How do I know what work? Am I doing what I should be doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which are very valid, good questions. A shadow work reading is a great place to start to see what's going on, right? Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, deity readings to see what spirits or gods or goddesses walk with you to help you understand yourself, not to worship them. I just want to be clear on that. And a list of others. If you're interested in any of those readings or spiritual consultation, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com. Include in the email the time zone you live in. Okay, very important, because I deal with people in all the time zones in the U.S. I deal with people outside of the U.S. Like I said before, I have clients in Ireland, London, Israel, Africa, from all over. And it makes it a little bit challenging sometimes to schedule these things, because I'm in Eastern time zone. So I need to make sure I have that information. It kind of cuts out a lot of the middle stuff, right? So put that in your email, where you live, your time zone, and I can give you dates of availability. I will say the last week of the month, it's going to be hard for me to do any readings and consultations. I just want to put that out there. I will probably stop that Sunday, the week of the conference, and I will just take a week break from doing readings and consultations due to the fact that we have to get this event planned and we have to get it going. All right. So everything I'm saying is going across the ticker on the bottom of the screen. It's on all of the platforms. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. The more you hit the likes and subscribe, it reaches more people. And also hit the notification bell. When you subscribe, hit all notifications so you do get a notification when we go live. All right, I think that gets through the meat of it. And remember, Journey to Black Adept Conference. Now is the time to sign up, people. Now is the time to sign up. So I highly encourage you guys to register now, whether you're attending live or virtually, right? Now's the time. All right, so what I wanted to kind of talk about, you see it, the 3 pillars of the occult and the left-hand path, right? I've been talking a lot about these over the last couple of years, but I'm going to kind of just have a quick discussion tonight for an hour or so. We'll see. And emphasize the importance of this, because we've talked a lot about them individually, but something I do with those who are Patreon members in the mentorship program. These are the 3 pillars I start them out with, right? Now, I want to make this clear. Everybody's going to have their own perspective. Everybody's going to have their own opinions. Everybody's going to have their own way of doing things. So I understand that. I don't really care about that. Only thing I can discuss with you guys and share with you guys what I know works. Will it work for everybody else? No. Is everybody else going to be in agreement with it? No. I can tell you, though, there will be a lot more people in agreement with it that is not. Having said that, that's neither here nor there as far in regards, you make the decision what's right for you. But I can tell you this formula has been very effective for myself and many others for years now, right? And I refer to these as the 3 foundational pillars because, as I've said many times before, people come on this path and they have no structure, not rigid or religious structure. They have no foundation and they have no structure in the sense that they're all over the place, right? Now, I've said many times over the years, it is important to be very versatile, flexible, the ability to change on the spot, because this path is a never-ending path. It's an ever-changing path, and you must always be ready to embrace change, no doubt. But you must set some personal structure. So when I'm talking about structure, I'm not talking about dogmatic structure via religions, philosophies, and man-made rules and regulations. That's not the type of structure I'm talking about. But you need to set some discipline and structure on a personal level for yourself. Because the mistake, as I've said before, people will come on this path and they just jump into shit that they like. And that's cool. It's good that you like something, right? You got to have a passion for it, no doubt. But sometimes they're jumping into stuff that, 1, they may not be ready for. 2, it may not be a time of need for that at the moment. And 3, they're neglecting other important things that's going on with the shadow or the hidden self that's not being addressed, right? So this is important. But if you are utilizing and coming out the gate and making sure consistently you're working with these 3 pillars, excuse me, pillows. You see where my head is at. I'm thinking about going to fucking bed. Pillars, okay, excuse me, is shadow work, ancestral work, and demonic integration. Pretty much in that order. You could flip-flop the last 2 because you're going to wind up, and I'll explain, you're going to wind up doing some work. But shadow work must be first. So let's talk about that one briefly. For a little bit. Let's get into that. Let's discuss the importance of that. This has become a big thing in the last several years. It's become kind of trendy in certain circles. It's become kind of new agey in other circles. I just want to be clear. We're talking about on this path, the path of the occult, the left-hand path of doing some good old-fashioned hardcore shadow work, right? Not this get in tune with the the lovable you and all that shit and blah, 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 right? No, it's about getting in tune with all aspects of yourself, the good and the bad, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the wonderful. And we all have all of that. Most people are in self-denial in regards when it comes to that, consciously and unconsciously. And let me explain. With shadow work or real shadow work, you can't pick and choose what you want to deal with. And I find we have a lot of cherry pickers with shadow work, right? We have a lot of people that like to pat themselves on the back about the things that they think they're good at. And that's fine because you just strengthen them. We always people like to be braggadocious about certain talents and gifts they got. And that's fine too. But you never really hear anybody taking accountability. You never hear anybody taking responsibility for the fucked up shit they got going on with themselves. There's always an excuse. There's always a reason. There's always some crutch to lean on why there's something wrong. And step 1 is admitting, I don't care who you are, how long you've been around, how much you think you know, we all got some messed up shit about ourselves that we can work on. All of us. All right. Step one, you know, that a lot of people that think they don't have anything wrong, well, that's their first mistake, thinking they don't have anything wrong with ourselves. We all have a history going back to our childhood, you know, from a small infant to a child to an adolescent to a teenager. We've all picked up psychological, mental, and emotional baggage along the way, right? Good and bad, right? It's not all just about the negative, right? So I'm not just saying it's negative, but what I am saying is we don't really focus on what, quote unquote, these negative things. If, you know, I'm just using a term that we can relate to, right? So we have to focus on all of those aspects. So step one, if you think there's nothing wrong, that's your first mistake. There is plenty wrong. Hold on. Mike, you done with the TV? Huh? You turned it off? All right. So that's step one. Almost like a AAA meeting, right? Look at it like this. It's almost like an alcoholic that goes to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Right? What's the first thing they tell you in AA? Right? You got to admit you're an alcoholic first, or you have a problem, right? Shadow work is the same thing. You gotta suppress that weak side of your ego and admit, yeah, I got some issues wrong with me. Let me give you a clue if you're confused, if you're listening, like, what are you talking about? We all could have temper problems, patience problems. We all might have issues being a good father or mother to our children. We might struggle in that area. We all might have addictions, right? Addictions just ain't drug addictions. Addictions could be to food, to sex, to video games. Some people are addicted to watching TV and binge watching movies all day. They can't get out of that habit. Some people are just fucking lazy, right? They just don't do shit. They want to lay around all day. That's an addiction. Being lazy, doing nothing, lack of motivation, all this shit. Right? These are all shadow issues that you need to address, because you can't have all these things going on, right? And then we can get a little bit more personalized and hardcore. Some people are dealing with psychological, mental, and emotional abuse issues, residue from it, whether that's physical abuse from physical violence, whether that's verbal abuse. Some people were raised in very destructive or toxic households. Their parents could have been abused, and they project that onto their kids. And people don't realize talking to a young child from a very small age in a very abusive way can leave psychological trauma as they get older. People don't realize the long-lasting effects of that. And then obviously sexual abuse, right? Which is, I've said this before in the past, I get blown away over the years in doing this, and me myself not being, I've been fortunate not being exposed or being a victim of sexual abuse, so I can't speak from that personal perspective. But I almost 1 out of every 3 people, when I deal with clients with readings and consultations, you'll be surprised when I first sit down at a reading, and many people that know me, and some of you can be in here now, one of the first thing that pops up right when I start the reading, I'll ask them, you were sexually molested or you were sexually abused? And they go, yeah. It's one of the first things that pop up sometimes in a reading. And it blows me away, because it's not something like, look, it's not a great stat at all, by all means. It just blows me away how common it is. Almost 1 out of every 3 people, or every client that I deal with in a reading or a consultation, has been affected by that in some shape, form, or fashion. It's fucking crazy. And more so women than men, but there are men, and it's different with men because there's more of a pride and an ego thing. There's more of feeling less like a man. It's a little harder, in my opinion. I've noticed it's harder for men to be more open up about it. Not that it's easy for women, because it's not. And then obviously the common theme is it's always usually a family member for the most part. Not all the time, but I'm going to say close to 85 to 90% of the time. The fucked up part about it is it's usually a direct bloodline family member. And, you know, when it starts at a young age as a child, that's something that's got to be addressed. All right. this is crazy. Because if we try to sweep something like that under the rug, it will rear its ugly head at some point when you least expect it. And as I said before, to understand what real shadow work is, unfortunately, it's not snap, crackle, pop. I'm going to do a couple of rituals and exercise and poof, be gone. I wish it was that easy. Just like I say, everything else isn't. It takes work. It's going to take some time and effort. Shadow work about those things that have impacted you negatively on a psychological, mental, and emotional level, right? It's about putting them in its correct context and perspective. And then by doing that, you're able to move forward where it doesn't hinder your growth and evolution on your spiritual path in your personal life, right? Anybody that tells you you're going to completely forget and it's going to go away and you could, they're lying to you because they don't know what they're talking about, or they got a hustle or an agenda they're trying to run on you. Okay. That's, people ain't going to tell you that, but you also can't run from things like that. And though I know it's not, some people don't want to deal with it. They don't want to bring it up. They don't want to relive. And I get all that. I totally get it. We're not doing it to just hash it all back up and bring it back up, right? We're doing it because we need to address it and face it. Just sweeping it under the rug or pretending it doesn't exist or pushing it to the side or just ignoring it, all you're doing is creating a stronger resistance. So this is why I tell people to be successful on this path. One of your first goals, shadow work is a continued process. Let's establish that. There's just going to be moments in your life where you got things harmonized, things are flowing smoothly, where you just might have to do minor things, right? There's always some improvement you could do there. Like we all can work on patience. Sometimes anger and emotions, we always have to do shadow work to make sure we're in tune with our emotions and we are facilitating those emotions correctly, right? That is an ongoing process, especially patience, right? Patience is the hardest school to master in any system of spirituality. I've said that for many years, right? That's the hardest school to master. And step one, I'm not just talking about being patient with others, right? That's important. Being patient with family, friends, your children, right? Very important. Your significant other, all those things, all those family members, right? But being patient with yourself. The other thing that I find, people want everything right out the gate, right? And it's great to be eager, it's great to be motivated and have that drive. Keep that. But you must also exercise patience. I see people want to come on this path and they want to figure it all out in a week or two. It's not that easy. I'm 20 plus years deep in this and I'm still learning. That's why what makes this path different than other paths, it's a continued process. There's no manual. There's no, you finished, here's your reward, here's your title, here's your accolades, you're master this, grand poobah that, priest this, priestess that, obar this, etc. It doesn't work like that. That's just not how this works. This is a consistent, ongoing, continual process that doesn't end. Get that locked in your head. Because if you think there's any spiritual system out there, that's the problem why people jump from system to system. Because they didn't get or thought they were going to get what they thought in something. They become impatient and then they go jump to something else. And then because they get impatient again, that didn't work, they go jump to something else. I've said this many times over here. How many of us know people, acquaintances? We may not be friends with them. We may know them from maybe at one point we were friends with them, whatever. But they're acquaintances. We see them here and there. And maybe they were into spirituality, consciousness, whatever. And sometimes when you see them, it seems like certain individuals always seem to be into some new shit every time you run into them. You saw them one time, they were a Muslim. You saw them another time, they were into Ifa and Santeria. You ran into them another time, they're a Sufi mystic. You ran into them another time, they're Buddhist. That's a sign of somebody who's struggling to find themselves because, one, they probably never were rooted in good shadow work to help understand themselves. All right. And then some people get scared straight and go right back into Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, because once they realized this ain't for me, right? Oh, it's not what I thought it was. Oh, it's not light a few candles, say a few invocations, put on a black robe and say, Hail Satan, and my problems is fixed. Oh, it's not that. Oh, I'm out. It's not. People have misconceptions about the cult, about the occult, right? It's work. And to me, it's disrespectful to all of us who have put the time, effort, and energy in, right? Who it's insulting to me in a sense because it's very foolish and ignorant to think something like that actually exists. And it's an old adage: if something's too good to be true, it is, or it usually is. There's no quick way out. So one, you must say to yourself, I am prepared to take the journey. There's an old saying in spirituality from the old sages and mystics in alchemy and Hermetic philosophy. This is about taking a very long walk on a short path, right? And if you don't know what that saying means, let me explain. Let me say it again. It's about taking a very long walk on a short path, meaning there's a lot to learn in a very short period of time, right? And that's why you must be patient with yourself. Not patient with yourself that you're procrastinating and wasting time. The thing is, you must absorb stuff, understand it, put it in its perspective, okay, and move forward. Being able to move forward, or before you can move forward, you should have a thorough understanding. I see people jumping all over the place, and they don't have an understanding of some of the things they've claimed to already have worked with, right? And usually that's because shadow work will uncover specifically what is going on in your life in the current moment, in the now, right? The only thing that's real to us, I've talked about this so many times over the years, time. Time is an illusion, especially linear time. It does not exist, people. The more you are locked into the false concept and illusion of linear time, right, you will be trapped in a system of programming and indoctrination, right? The time thing was the number one trick they have used to keep us confounded in a limited way of thinking. It destroys our imagination, our visualization skills. And I told you, the war has always been for the power of the mind. I keep telling you guys that. That's what the war is over. Don't get distracted by all this external physical shit, and this is what they do. Because while they're distracting you with the war in Russia, COVID, all this other crazy shit that's going on in the world in the news, they're quietly behind the scenes waging a war to control your mind through artificial intelligence, right? Big thing now. I've gone over that. Through media, through movies, through programming on TV, right? Through the educational system, right? Through society conformist norms such as this neutral gender shit now, right? I don't want to get into all this, but through the political arena and through all the conspiracy theories and the systematic program that they're utilizing and the physical distractions such as wars, diseases, so-called pandemics, all to instill fear in you. And while you are distracted and while they have captivated you but via your emotions, through the emotion of fear, they're going to work psychologically for the control of your mind, okay? This is what's going on out here. And we better wake up quick, because if not, we're going to all be walking around like some programmed robotic zombies that can't think for themselves, right? And this is why we must wake up now, okay? The shadow self will make clear to you what's going on inside of here and what's going on inside of here, right? Because that's where it starts. Because everything that's going on outside and around you, that's what they have programmed you to think is the reality. And you respond to that reality by the signals and the energy that they send through brainwave frequencies. So what you're seeing and how you're processing those signals and those energies is how you react. This is why it's funny when you watch TV and the news, how you can get a reaction out of people when they just put widespread panic on CNN or MSNBC or what's the other one? Fox News, local news, right? It's very easy to get people's minds functioning a certain way, okay? This is important for us to understand so we don't allow it to be a distraction. And I've said this many times before. Okay, I've said this many times before, right? Regardless of what's going on, it should never hinder you from doing your spiritual work. Even when your brain might be sending you signals that you're interpreting as something negative, right? That's when you need to really, really rely on your spiritual work and your spiritual power. I find so many people how they just abandon it by getting caught up in their emotions, right? So if that's the case, draw upon your spiritual power to give you clarity, to give you understanding, so you can move forward. We're not caught up in that paradox, right? And we should never be. I'm not saying to a degree there isn't some level of reality to it. And I say some level of reality. The only thing that's real to it is about how much you allow it to affect yourself. So by all means, I'm not saying certain things that are going on outside of your immediate surroundings that you should not be aware of and conscious of, but not to the point where it's affecting you functioning on an everyday basis, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. There's so many people get caught up in bullshit. I get emails on such stupid shit that I couldn't give two flying shits about. Okay. So when you're grounded and centered on the shadow self, right, it's going to point you in a direction, right, where you need to go as far as what you should be doing now in your life. As I said, time. The most important thing to us on this path is the now. The past has happened. It's archived, and it's expounding and contracting out there into the ethers and the multiverses, right? As I told you, real time, for lack of a better word, I don't even like to use that word time. Real time contracts and expands. It is. It doesn't really go anywhere, but we call it the past. So that's contracting and expand. As I said before, when this video started, whatever, how long ago, that is still expanding out into the ethers, right? The important thing for us to understand, the future, we also think, looking ahead, we've become so misled in our understanding. We think tomorrow, or what we think is tomorrow, is guaranteed to come. Most people, I'm not talking about per se, maybe us on the path of the occult, because we know better, but most just mundane people in the world, right? They think, most of them go to bed every night thinking that they're going to see it tomorrow. That's just how ignorant and foolish they are. We are only concerned with the present moment, the now. That's the problem. And that's why shadow work is critical, because the problem is in a lot of systems of spirituality, people are always, it doesn't mean, look, I want to make this clear. It doesn't mean don't have goals, don't plan for the future. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. What I am saying is the importance is, it's that old adage, if you take care of today, right, tomorrow takes care of itself, right? The problem is we're looking over here, we're looking down there, we're looking way over here, we're looking up there, and we're not paying attention per se to what's going on in the now, in the moment around us right now. And we're missing it. In just a simple flick of an eye blink, we're not catching it. We're missing it. And that's part of the distraction, to get you to look everywhere else but in the now. And it starts within. And this is why I told you, most spiritual paths and religions and dogmas, it's an outward journey in, which keeps you again away from the real you. So it's always, most of these religions start with some spirit force or spook force somewhere out there, somewhere in the sky, an invisible force that nobody can prove even exists. And they teach you to go out there and work your way in. And you're wasting all of this time doing something that is pointless, not even necessary, and honestly, not even real. Whereas this path is completely reverse. We start here in, because if whatever you want to refer to it as, the great spirit, the gods, the goddesses, the creator, whatever term floats your boat, I personally, those are just titles. They really don't mean anything to me. But if you're trying to find this power, this God force, this demon force, this spirit force, whatever floats your boat, because we could be here having philosophical debate about that all night. I don't really care for that. That power you've always been looking for resides within. You need look no further but right in here, in the mirror. And shadow work starts you there, because you will see what these paths call the God and devil exists within you. You are what they're calling God and the devil. You are just as much both of them as they are, but they don't see it. This God and devil character, what they were trying to show you, and they made it very mortal, and they simplified it and dumbed it down. That God and devil archetype, for lack of a better word, exists within you. The Set and Heru thing you hear me talk about over the years, that represents that internal battle that takes place inside of you every day when you exercise your will, from the simplest of choices and decisions to, when I get up in the morning, what color t-shirt am I going to wear today? What sneakers am I going to wear? The war starts when you arise in your mundane existence, not when you're in the astral realm, not when you're in the dream realm, not when you're sleeping, because you leave your body and you travel every night, whether you're conscious or unconscious of it. I know some people say, oh, I can't recollect any of my dreams. You're having dreams, trust me. You're traveling, you're taking flight. It's just there's something there, could be blocking it. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother time, right? But every day, your war, when you are conscious in the mundane world, you are constantly fighting a war. And that's why I said this war has been mental from day one, but they've distracted you with it, with all the bullshit I was talking about earlier. So from the moment you get up in the morning and you might open your closet or your drawer and you go, what color shirt am I going to wear? What pair of shorts am I going to wear with that, with pants or jeans? What sneakers or shoes am I going to wear with this outfit? Yeah, that's an old school word, right? Outfit. That shows you how old I am. Nobody says that no more, right? Then you get dressed, right? Maybe you wear cologne or oil, or what fragrance am I going to wear today? Then you might come out and say, what am I going to eat this morning? You see the war that starts from the moment you get up. Then that doesn't include the personal daily tasks you gotta exercise your willpower and fight through. What bills do I need to pay? What errands do I run? I gotta take my kids to school. I gotta do this. I got this. So your exercise, you will, and then it goes deeper. It leaves the mundane, and then there's spiritual, mental, and emotional wars you fight on a daily basis. Okay, that's what this represents. Right? That's what the Set Heru archetype represents. The Hawuti, he of two faces, right? When you see that image of one body and you see the face of Set facing one way and the face of Heru or Horus facing the other way, that is a message to the Black adept, the occultist, the spiritualist, right? You have what people refer to as the character types of Set, which really represents the higher self, right? Which really represents red blood cells, chaos, right? Non-conformity. And then you have Heru, which represents white blood cells, order, conformity, and it represents the lower self. That story of that battle of Set, bitch slapping Heru, represents the higher self defeating the lower self. Contrary to how people in the fluffy community will reverse the story, right? Oh, it's the battle between good and evil. That's some religious shit. Set represents the devil. The devil in what? Because as soon as you say the word devil, you have automatically, whether you are conscious of it or not, have linked yourself up with religious dogma. And that's also confirmation that you are still subconsciously programmed by it. Because the whole Set Heru thing existed long before there was a concept of religion, be it Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, or this term devil, which doesn't come till years down the road afterwards. And if you knew your history, Set was never in his original origin portrayed as this devil character that people portray him as in these last or modern era of time. Okay. If you go back prior to the pre-dynastic Egyptians and you go back prior to the 24th and 25th dynasty, the position that Usir holds as one of the guardians of the underworld with Ampu in the opening of the mouth ceremony, that position at one point prior, before the Osirian cult took over and ruled Egypt, Set was in that position. Most people don't know that because they don't do their research, okay? This is crazy, because when you look at two aspects of it, right? Even with Heru, you have another aspect of Heru as the hawk-faced Lord that nobody really talks about, right? Which, if you understand who the concept of the hawk-faced Lord is, this also is a story that's symbolic and is representative of us, because it's almost like the Jedi story. Horus, or Heru, he found out too, it wasn't just about the light. It wasn't just about love and light. They realized you needed some of the power of what some are calling darkness. You needed a harmonization of both, right? It represents an awakening, right? And even when you look at the Hawuti, right? When you see the set emerging from Heru, that's also representing, as I said, an awakening. And if you are familiar with the hawk-faced Lord, do a little research on the hawk-faced Lord. What does the representation of Heru losing his eye represent? I mean, we can get into these concepts. Long story short, they're all trying to show you the emergence of your reawakening. When you come into the realization of not who you think you are, because they've been trying to tell us that from day one. We all have been told, and regardless of where you're at now, when we all were small children and birthed into this world, they tried their best, trust me, to try to stamp into us what they wanted it, or what they wanted us to accept as truth. And it starts from a very early age. Some may not have went through it to certain levels and degrees, but most people here in the West that came up through religion, whether it was, some people came up in less strict environments, maybe you didn't have it there strong. Some people came up in very strict programmed environments of it. But regardless of the fact, if you're raised or been here in the West for a while, you're exposed to it on a daily basis, right? So this is important for us to understand. So what these stories were trying to tell us was our reemergence, our awakening, our revival, us coming into the realization of who we really are, not who we thought we were, right? And then they reversed a lot of these stories, right? A lot of these stories are twisted to make it look, as I said before, in opposition to what it really is. And that takes research and understanding to do. But anyway, not to get sidetracked and get into, we talk about the mythology on many, we'll get back to that. Let's get back to the shadow work, and then we'll move on to the other two, right? This was all obviously opening up the discussion of the importance of shadow work. So when you step on this path, my suggestion, and as I said before, I don't tell people what to do. I don't tell people, what they should and should not do, any of those things, because you have to make a conscious decision for yourself, right? But I would strongly suggest, if you want to get off to a good start, more so, I'm not talking about to some of you who've been on the path for a while. This may not necessarily apply to you, but if maybe you're a newer person, or maybe you're just starting out on the path, because this is a very popular and familiar email I get on and off over the years. Where do I begin? Where do I start? Get this all the time. And if you know me, this is what my suggestion, is where I would strongly suggest people to start. Okay? Now, on the Patreon, we're approaching class number 12, right? We just did class number 11. So I know the next question is, and I'm not just saying this as a plug-in, but this is the right time to plug it in. In the Patreon, we have an ongoing series of shadow work classes where we show you how you start in the beginning stages, such as journaling, which is the basic preparatory steps. There's some ritual work and exercises one must do first out the gate to uncover what it is that you need to address, right? And in that work, and in all the classes, there's the materials, the books, the rituals, all the things that you need to do to identify all of those things about yourself. Not just the negative, the good and the bad, but we need to focus on the things we need to correct, right? Once you are able to identify through your shadow work what it is you need to improve on, then we show you how you start designing ritual and spiritual work for your needs. There's another thing people struggle with on this path,
Okay. We struggle with this because a lot of us in life in general have always been taught to prioritize our wants, right? And this is where some personal discipline and patience come in. And this is why I said earlier, a lot of people come on this path chasing wants. Yeah, it might start out okay. I know some people say, hey, you got some quick results, and that's cool. But we're not looking for a flash in the pan, just quick results. We're looking for a body of consistency when it comes to results, right? So one thing you must learn in your shadow work is to address the needs first. The wants will come. Trust me when I tell you. Once your goal is to seek knowledge of himself, improvement of himself on all levels, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially, and shadow work shows you that, I guarantee you all of the wants, the opportunities will present themselves for you to attain that. I don't care if it's materialistic things, pleasurable things, joy, whatever it is. Trust me, it comes. When that's not your, here's the crazy thing, when that's not your priority and main focus, your first main priority always on this path should be knowledge of self. If you're seeking knowledge of self first, everything can proceed from that. Trust me when I tell you. Now, however you need to do that, there's not one particular method or way to do it. I'm trying to show you an avenue where it's very flexible for you to make that adjustment in accordance with your needs and your path. So this is why shadow work helps you and puts you in the right direction. Now, there's a lot more to it. I'm just trying to run through these things quick. But in the shadow work classes, and we're approaching shadow work class number 12, materials, even book references, I show you from journaling is a good way to start, right? And there's a lot of good shadow work journals out there. You can find them. We have a couple that we're using specifically for the class because it asks some very important questions to the self, right? Because it brings up things, one, that maybe we're not comfortable addressing because we're in denial about it. It doesn't leave any stone unturned. So the beginning stages of shadow work help you understand yourself. Now we're at a point in the shadow work class where we're working with specific demons and gods and goddesses now to address, because those that have been in the class for a while now, approaching almost a year, I believe, their majority of them are now working with spirits like Belial, Lucifer. We've worked with Sekhmet, Kali, you name it. We are now, because we have clear information on what we need to work on. So there are rituals now that we are constructing in these classes where people can now start working on the shadow self to improve and take those weaknesses and turn them into strengths. And I'm getting emails. It's good. One of the great things I love to see is emails of progress, not complaining and struggle, which that's part of it. Don't get me wrong. Not everybody's built the same. Other people catch on and grasp a little quicker than others. And I do understand everybody progresses differently. We can't expect everybody to progress the way we do, right? Everybody's different. But it's always nice to get those emails of growth where people say, hey, man, I did this and such and such and such and such. That's a beautiful thing, because that shows the person has absorbed and understood what they were doing, he or she. And it's a beautiful feeling when you can look back and see the results and the manifestation of your work, right? So that's shadow work. That's number one, right? I'm going to run through these real quick, and then I'll go to the chat. We'll see how much time we have to take some questions. Not so much comments. If the comment I feel is important in relation to what we're talking about, yes. But I'm more so going to look for questions for the sake of time. So I would encourage you, for the sake, because it is kind of late and this was a last minute thing. I encourage you to get your questions ready. Just type them in the chat. No matter how early they're back, I'm going to start from the top and work my way to the bottom. But I'm looking more so for questions and dialogue. I'm not really interested in personal opinion. I'm not so much interested. Comments between each other, I'll skip just for the sake of time, because we want to get to the meat of it, right? Let's talk about the second thing, demonic integration work, right? I just wanted to give you, like I say, go in and give you a good foundational understanding of shadow work, right? The daemon within, the true and higher self, cannot awaken if the shadow self has not been addressed. I don't give a fuck what anybody tells you. Somebody can give you their opinion of it. They can give you their own perspective. I'm just giving you the reality of it based on the facts. And the only way you're going to come to the realization of those facts is by experiencing it. All right. Because your goal and objective through your shadow work is to remove all false aspects of the illusionary self, meaning everything that they have programmed us to be. We must be able to cipher through that and see. A lot of us find out at some point in this process, in this journey, that we have been trying to live a life and an illusion that's not really us. Right? We've been seeking things and trying to live up to this false example of who we think we are. And that could be from a multitude of reasons. One, how we were programmed from an early age, societies, systems of conformity, things like keeping up with the Jones, fads, trends, everything from the very mundane to the deeper spiritual things. You start to remove all the veil and the illusionary aspects of yourself. So once that is stripped away, then the personal daemon or the higher and true self can emerge, right? The personal daemon, the shadow self, because unlocking the shadow or the hidden self is where you will find the personal daemon, right? And though there is a literal manifestation of your personal daemon, that's one aspect of it. I would recommend a good book by Malthus that I've mentioned many times before called The Black Ship. You need to understand the different fragments of how the personal daemon operates, the advocate and the familiar, which is two concepts in the book, The Black Ship, and dealing with the pandemonium, Mandela, and the personal daemon and the higher self. And I like that book because it's something that you can apply across the board in your demonic integration work, right? It's called demonic integration work because you're trying to integrate you, the mundane self, right, with the real you. And once there's the harmonization of the subjective aspect of your consciousness and the objective, I say a harmonization, a good understanding how both function and operate, then that personal daemon can truly emerge. It can emerge if that veil is still over your eyes. That's why I keep telling people, okay? This is very important to understand because people want to pretend like sometimes we don't want to own up to the choices and the decisions we make. And that creates a lot of problems in our life, right? And that all of those things that are self-created based on the choices and decisions we make could be suppressing us from growing and evolving into what we're destined or should be destined to become. And we get distracted. And a lot of people want to blame external, outside things for their weaknesses. You're going to find out a lot of your problems, majority of them are self-created simply by the choices and the decisions you make, right? And that's one thing this path teaches a hard lesson on, right? You might have been walking around or thinking for years, oh, people out to get me. People, a motherfucker always think everybody hating on them. I always say, what makes you think a motherfucker's sitting around all day? That you that special, that you think a motherfucker's sitting around all day thinking about you and how they could destroy you. I'm not saying there's not messed up people like that exist, but sometimes it's the person that's messed up that's thinking that and they just don't see it. Because what they're doing is they're using that as a crutch to hide their weaknesses. See, I don't sit around or wouldn't even waste my time sitting around thinking and wondering what people are thinking about me and what they could possibly be doing to me. That's a distraction of my energy. And first of all, I don't worry about shit like that because I go to work on it quick. I don't even need to worry about that. You should be at a point where that's the least of your worries. Your biggest enemy is you. Don't let nobody bullshit you because that's self-created fear, right? Our anxieties, our insecurities, and our fears are our biggest poison. It's our number one enemy, and it's created from within. And it only becomes a reality when we embrace it as a reality. It's no different where in certain spiritual, whether it's voodoo and other systems, you got to first believe in your mind, for an example, that somebody's cursing you and putting root work on you, this and that. I don't care what anybody says. There'll be other people in those traditional paths say, oh, that's not true. Trust me when I tell you. It had a person has to be the right mind to be the right target, right? People don't understand this, and that's not saying that that stuff isn't real, because it is. Destructive magic is real. Curses can be real if done correctly and the target is right. But I always say this, and I've always instructed people, and destructive magic has its place on this path. I always recommend people use it with discretion, right? Because it's not free. And I'm not talking about financially. You will give something of yourself. Trust me when I tell you. And some people ain't ready to pay what some of these spirits are requesting from you. Let me be clear on that. And be very cautious who your target is. I've seen that turn around on a lot of people, because sometimes you're attacking somebody who you do not know it is you're attacking. And sometimes they're way more powerful than you. And sometimes that energy can be reversed and put right back on you without you even knowing it. See, a real motherfucker that's in that game ain't going to talk about it. See, I don't talk about that stuff, because that's something you keep in the bag and utilize when needed. But you got people that got diarrhea of the mouth, and they'll talk too much. And like I said, just sometimes the best time when a fool is in your presence, let them talk, because 9 out of 10 times they'll tell on themselves. Because most fools have diarrhea of the mouth. They can't stop talking. And, you know, they can't keep they can't keep a secret. So you will find out what you need to know. And that's why I said the target and the mind must be right, when it comes in regards to that. So back to removing the veil of the illusionary self. Now, in demonic integration work, for an example, in the black ship, it gives you exercises. There's many different methods, many personal daemon rituals you can do to activate and materialize and make your personal daemon manifest and connect with it. It's always there. It's not like it's gone anywhere. But when we say the personal daemon or the higher self, the word daemon, Daemon, goes back to Hermetic philosophy, right? It was just a term used for the higher intelligent genius self, or the real you, right? You find it also in Egyptian Heka referred to as the agathodaemon, right? Same thing. You're going to find different concepts and constructs of it in different philosophies, but they all, even in Thelema with Crowley, he referred to it as the holy guardian angel, right? Same thing. It's a form of connecting, whether you want to refer to it as a spirit guide, a guardian angel, a personal daemon, whatever you want to refer to it as, the construct and the purpose and what it's described as and what it serves as far as in relationship to you and your spiritual journey, you'll see the similarities, right? This is also a critical component and step, because when the shadow self has emerged and you have awakened the personal daemon within, right? Only then can you successfully start to proceed and take a journey on this path. Trust me when I tell you, right? Now, we'll get back to this too in a second. I just want to make sure I throw the last one in there. Ancestral work. I know we talked a little bit about this. We were talking about ancestral trauma, ancestral work. It was the shadow work class. I don't think we addressed it here. Sometimes I can't remember the YouTube and that and which one separates the two. But the importance of ancestral work. Now, there's going to be a difference of opinion on this, right? Some people go, I don't do any type of ancestral work. I don't work with my ancestors at all. And that's fine. You know, you can do whatever you want on this path, right? As I said before, nobody can tell you what you should and should not do. I would make a suggestion. And again, that's why, again, the book I referred to earlier, The Black Ship, he has a section in there called Concerning the Ancestors. It's one of the few books, in my opinion, that's out there that shows you how to connect with the ancestors from a left-hand path, occult perspective, minus a lot of the traditional nonsense and the religious nonsense, right? As I've said many times before over the years, we don't worship our ancestors. That's why I don't use the word ancestral worship. I don't like it. It's religious. And one, you can't worship yourself, because the same blood and DNA and RNA that runs through their veins runs through your veins, right? So you can't worship yourself. That's foolish. Now, and again, I refer to the Black Ship book. He talks about showing reverence and giving honor and respect to your ancestors is different. By propitating your ancestors, by giving them that reverence, right? It's acknowledging the divine in you, and it's also acknowledging the divine of your bloodline, right? As I said many times before, there's a threefold method of working with your ancestors because not all of them are productive for you, right? Because unfortunately, some of our ancestors were killers, criminals, rapists, drug dealers, drug addicts, alcoholics. That's why I don't recommend pouring libation out for all your ancestors. We don't want to feed an alcoholic, because when you're accessing your ancestors, like any other spiritual work, you are a beacon and a magnet of attracting these spirits and energy. The last thing you want is an ancestral bloodline spirit to take host in your body to feed their addiction. This is why some people always describe, I've mentioned this before, they say they started working with ancestral spirits and all of a sudden they got an addiction to a certain food, or they start drinking more and they never used to drink like that, or they find themselves drinking and eating shit that they never used to eat. They may not be conscious that an ancestral spirit has taken host in their body. And that can happen to feed an addiction. You have to understand, when you're doing spiritual work, ritual work, not just ancestral work, I've said this many times before, right? These spiritual beings are beings of light and energy, and they see you not physically, the way you think physically. They see the aura through the energy that you give off, right? Your crown is always giving off a color, right? You could do research on Kirlian photography. They've talked about this going back years, right? You're constantly giving off a vibrational frequency that emits a color. And this is how these spirit beings are able to detect if you are a ripe host for a spirit possession or a walk-in spirit or as a host. Now, when you're in a negative, or what somebody would label in a agitated state of mind, or what somebody would call a negative state of mind, right? This is why they're able to sense through that vibrational frequency the mood that you are projecting. So when we always hear this word energy, people always talk about energy. Spirit is energy, but I don't think they understand how it works. So this is when they are able to detect. You're like a magnet. And once that is sensed, you can draw a certain energy of spirits to you, good or bad. Now it's different when you are in control and navigating it, and you are voluntarily, say, trying to invoke a possession or draw a spirit to you, and you're in full control or command of it. But what about when you're not in command of it? What about when you're not in control of your emotions? What about when you're dealing with depression? You're dealing with anxiety, anger issues. You're dealing with a whole bunch of life, personal problems and situations that are putting so much pressure on you that you are out of your right frame of mind. That is a candidate that is ripe for a walk-in spirit, as some call in some spiritual systems, right? This is important to understand, because this can explain to us sometimes why things are going on in our life that there's no common on the surface explanation. Sometimes people describe all types of symptoms of feeling sick and ill. I think I mentioned this a few classes back, right? They're feeling headaches, body pains, flu-like symptoms. They feel nauseous or sick all the time, headaches, you name it. And they think there's something wrong with them. Now, I want to be clear as I'm saying this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. You always, if you're not feeling well, always get things checked out, get the medical clear first. But sometimes, you know how many clients I know over the years, they describe all these crazy symptoms, feeling sick all the time, body aches, pains, headaches, you name it, diarrhea, all types of crazy shit, digestive disorders, you name it, right? Then they've been going to doctors for years. They get blood work, it comes back clear. They get CAT scans, x-rays. Every test in the book is run, and the doctor come back and tell them, I don't know what it is. Nothing's coming up. Everything's in the clear. And then they start prescribing you medication you don't need. Oh, you're saying you got this symptom? Let me give you a drug for depression. Makes it even worse. Oh, you're saying you got this system, a digestive disorder. Oh, let me give you this drug. Oh, you think you got a depression? Oh, let me give you this drug. And then it makes matters worse. I'm going to tell you why. Because usually you're suffering from a spiritual illness. And this is why every medical test, every doctor is not going to be able to diagnose you. Now, what that is can be a multitude of things, right? That needs some probing into. It could be, I say that in regards to one aspect or one thing that can be causing it, is you could be a host for a spirit that has taken residence in you and you just don't know it. Now, how can you tell? Usually a telltale sign is you could see radical change in your behavior and your emotions. Some of the things I described earlier. Sometimes it can get to the point, it could be so deep when you go into depression, say, and people describe that a lot, that you just become oblivious to it. You can't see it at all. And sometimes it takes maybe some form of divination or some type of ritual work to uncover it for the person, because they might be so far gone that they're not in the frame of mind to see it no more. You know how many times people come to me and tell me that? But I've also seen sometimes it's a mental disorder. I've also run into people over the years who think they're possessed by spirits. And it ain't that they're possessed by spirits. There's just something medically is wrong mentally with them. And that takes a little digging and probing into too. So it just depends. I'm bringing all these things up because these are the things we need to understand that could be hindering our spiritual growth and our spiritual path, right? I'm not saying that applies to everybody, because it doesn't, but this definitely could be some of the main reasons why. So ancestral work, you must be very cautious. Not all your ancestors were productive beings when they were here. Stop fronting, right? Some of you may or may not know that. Some of you are aware. Some of you know the history going back a few generations. You know some of your ancestors might have been killers or murderers or pedophiles or rapists or sexual deviants, right? But then some of us have no knowledge of this. So there's a threefold process, which that gets into something else of how you should address your ancestors. And I'll just give you the quick summarization of it. I ain't going to get into depth how to do it right now, because that's time consuming. You should be acknowledging, obviously, the ones that you are fully aware of that were productively and positively here for your growth and evolution. You should also be acknowledging the ones you don't know about that are here for your growth and evolution. But the most important part that most people don't show you with ancestral work is you got to make sure you do not welcome with a very strong conviction, passion, and a passion when you're doing ancestral work, those spirits that you are not aware about, or any of them at all that are not here for your growth and develop, they are not welcome. And you must address that. You can't get around that. So when you just address your ancestors as a whole, you are inviting all of them. It doesn't matter. That's the criminals, the pedophiles, all of them. And I'm sure if we dug deep down in our family, we all have that to some degree, right? Trust me when I tell you that some of you might say, oh, I'm not talking about the ones you know about. I'm not just talking about the ones you know about. I'm talking about the ones you don't know about. This is my whole point. So, connecting with your ancestors is the third component to that. Very important. You must be able, and again, just a suggestion, because as I said earlier, you're going to go into some circles where people are going to go, I don't even do no ancestral work. I don't feel it's important. Then there's people that go, I don't know much about my ancestors. You don't have to. You should still acknowledge them to a degree, because you can address them as a whole and also, eliminate the ones that you don't know about that are not there for your growth, right? There's still a way to address them. It's not a matter of how much you do know and don't know about them. Now, granted, if you're somebody that has a lot of information, then power to you. That's just going to be a strength for you. But you can still, with a limited amount of knowledge, still make that connection, because it's still part of you. And there's going to be things that manifest in your spiritual journey that are connected to that you're going to have to deal with. Trust me, especially in your shadow work, right? This will come up. So this is why I've put these three pillars together. And that's basically the short explanation of it, right? This is why I put these three pillars of the occult, the left-hand path, as an essential, a must. Shadow work, ancestral work, and demonic integration work, right? This is the foundation, in my opinion, right? In my opinion, this is the place I suggest people start. Now, granted, like I said before, you can do whatever you want. Personally, I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to lie to you, because, like I said, when the camera goes off, I don't lose sleep over that shit. Again, my job is to just put information out there. You do with it what you want, whether you like, love it, hate it, agree with it, disagree with it. That's personal too. I really don't care. that's something you got to come to grips with yourself. I couldn't care. But I'm giving I'm giving you a strong suggestion, not just an opinion. And this isn't just my suggestion based on my own experience. I can tell you over the years, a large group of people or a large percentage of people would be in agreement. And I'm not telling you to believe what I'm telling you. I'm telling you to experience it for yourself. Because a lot of people, like I said earlier, will come on the path and they'll start. Some of them, I've seen this be a critical mistake. And they don't realize it right out the gate. They'll just jump on this path. They'll start working with Set, intense aspects of Lucifer. They'll go jump into the clip pod. They'll start working with Lilith. And that's cool and shit, right? And sometimes out the gate, you know, they get a good jolt out the gate. But then they didn't realize the intense level of change that comes with working with some of that energy, right? They weren't ready for the influx of change that comes rapidly. And this is why I'm saying it's best to prepare yourself for the change rather than to just blindly jump into some shit you have no clue what you're doing. I see it all the time. Oh, yeah, it starts out great right out the gate. Oh, man, started working with Lilith. It goes from, oh, man, I love Lilith, and Lilith told me I'm her daughter and or her son. Oh, Lilith this, Lilith that. Check in with them people a couple months later. My God, Lilith turned my life upside down. They didn't realize what they were opening themselves up to, which could have been avoided if they used these three pillars or foundations. Now, again, I know because you could hear it in the ethers. There's always somebody out there that's so special. I know. Oh, no, not me. You know, see, I do everything. I'm Don Juan Smooth. Everything comes. I love the motherfuckers that's so full of shit. Everything comes easy to me. Oh, everything. I can do this. I can do that. Oh, I'm doing it. You know, I've been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. They did everything you can tell them. I don't buy it. Now, I know they could be saying that on the surface, and that's cool. But I told you, any motherfucker that thinks they perfect, stay away from that person because they're very toxic. That's a very destructive person. That's going to be very toxic in your environment because they are under the illusion that they're perfect. Because if we were perfect beings, we wouldn't even be here having this conversation right now. Okay? Just going to keep it real with you. There will be no need to have discussions on spirituality. There will be no need to have knowledge discussions. Because if you had it all figured out, you were perfect, you would have no need to even be sitting in this YouTube video class or any other class because you know everything. You're perfect. That's what I always used to tell people back in the day when they come to class, the know-it-alls. Why are you here? You're here, obviously, because there's things you're still seeking, whether you're conscious of it or not. You still see, we're all still trying to learn and figure it out. Remember, I always said to a degree, not in the follower sense, we're always a student in the sense that we're willing to learn and we're open to learning. And that takes sometimes suppressing the fucked up part of your ego, right? Some people can't do that. So we're always students in the sense that we're always willing to learn, expand our horizons, expand our consciousness. Not students in the sense that we're followers, not students in the sense that we're putting our spiritual sovereignty, liberty, and freedom in the hands of another motherfucker. No, not that way. That's stupidity. We're not followers on this path, right? You can't be on this path of self-mastery or what some call apotheosis and be a follower. It's not the path for you. Go join a club, a group, an organization, a movement, so you can feed and cater to the weak part of your ego, your insecurities, your fears, and your emotions because you feel a need to be a part of something that makes you feel bigger than yourself. And there's nothing bigger than you, contrary to belief. Because the only thing that's real is you. Because I guarantee you, if I sat there in private with you and broke it down to you, you really can't confirm yourself in anything outside of yourself. You think you can, but you will find out everything outside of yourself has been put there from somebody else but you. And the only thing that becomes real to you is what you accept as your reality. So just as quick as you accepted things as your reality, whether it was programmed into us, say, as Christianity, a mythology of religion, it's just as easy as we accepted it. It's just as easy for us to eliminate and destroy it. Which goes back to the principle I've been saying for years. You are building and destroying simultaneously via your subjective realm, your subjective consciousness all the time, which makes you God or goddess in that sense. Because when you have that awareness and that understanding of the build and destroy via you, that gives you what somebody would call being a God. not in that mythological sense, because religious people always get mad when they hear us say that. Oh my God, you said you're good. See, you're saying that you're mad because you're coming from a place of religion. See, because they program you so that God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. He's everywhere, right? And then you say stupid shit to them. Well, how could he be in heaven? Because if he's in heaven, then that means he's not here. So how can he be omnipresent at all times? Doesn't make sense. And then you put out stupid pictures of God, illustrations of God in heaven. You ever see that picture of God sitting on a chair? Jesus is on his right. And then they got the Holy Spirit coming down as a dove. Do you know the mistake in that picture? And what's wrong with that picture? Because now you're saying God is in a place that's bigger than him. So he can't be omniscient. Okay. So now we're saying heaven again. You don't got to agree with it or not. But now we're saying this place called heaven is bigger than God because it contains God, right? Do you see the mere mortal weakness in this foolishness? And we could go on and on with the fallacies of that. That's just a waste of time. We'll be here all night doing that because we could pick that apart from limb to limb. I say all that to say, right? You have to change your mindset, right? One of the things I've been saying for years now, you have to really, part of shadow work, part of demonic integration work and connecting with the true and higher self is shedding old paradigms, shedding old ways of thinking, shedding old spiritual systems and beliefs. And that's not an easy thing to do. All right. I'm not saying, especially more so for newer people on the path, people just getting out the gate. It's going to be tougher for them. Right. Look, I've seen it not just for newer people. I've seen it a struggle for people who've been on the path for a while. Right. So it doesn't go away overnight. And that's also when I was talking about earlier, that's also why I say you have to be patient with yourself. I see some people get too hard on themselves. Sometimes I caught myself, I slipped, I was doing this, and then all of a sudden this mentality of religion crept in. That's normal. That's going to happen. Because remember, look at it like you're putting your system in shock, especially out the gate. It's like almost like a drug addict who goes cold turkey, right? Your system's going to go into system shock out the gate till it makes the adjustment. Because when you stop feeding the mundane what it's accustomed to and what it needs, the mundane mind, it's going to turn on you. It's going to rebel on you. When I say that, what do I mean when I say it's going to turn on you, rebel on you? It's going to try to gravitate and cling on to something that makes it feel comfortable. You understand that? That's the problem. And that's where the internal mental battle takes place that I was talking about earlier. And that's where patience has to come in, right? Hold on. What happened here? Comments. Here we go. Yeah. Hold on. I was just checking something. All right. So anyway, that basically is the quick summarization. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to go through the chat. Again, I'm just going to try to more so focus on questions. I'll only focus on some comments that might be connected to what we're talking about. Side comments to each other. I'm just going to skip those. We're going to do that in a minute. I'm just going to step away for one quick second. I'll be right back. So again, I'm going to start from the top. I'm just going to work my way down. So if you got questions, put questions in. You should have some questions in relation to this. And we're going to start there in a moment. I will be right back. All right, so let's get into it. Let me scroll up. And let me see what we got at the top. I'm going to start from the top. All right, so again, infernal blessings, greetings to all. For the sake of time, if you got here late and I didn't greet you, infernal blessings. Good that you guys made it. I know this was kind of last minute. Kind of got on here late, was experiencing a few camera technical difficulties. But anyway, got that cleared up. Oh, so okay, Gypsy God, it's been a minute. Cool. Good to see you. Oh, wow, you went to Italy. Nice. If you're still here, cool. I don't know if you got to the southern part. I don't know if you made it to the Mediterranean. But good, cool. All right, so anyway, infernal blessings, greetings to all. Yes. Yeah, pillows. When I was saying pillars earlier, I said pillows. That's some funny shit sometimes. Hey, man, we do it. Yeah, pillows do work, right? What else we got here? All right. So maybe you put something further down. Antonio. Hopefully I ain't butchering your name. Noctifero, digital artist. I made a Black Mirror. Bought a book and looked up a couple of techniques regarding shadow work, but I don't think I'm getting it. Not sure what book. Maybe you typed in something later down. Yeah, Jin, you can't avoid the shadow stuff, right? And unfortunately, a lot of the lesser paths, religions teach you to avoid it. And most of us, it's not our fault, right? Especially when we've come from other systems into this, because most people are always telling you to avoid these things. Don't address it. They either think you could pray it away, meditate it away, or sweep it under the rug. So a lot of us that have come from backgrounds like that's not our fault, right? Because we were only doing one, we didn't know, right? We all were at some point where we didn't know what we know now. And that's part of the journey, right? That's part of the experience, it's part of the path. But, we just didn't know, right? Because we were always taught to meditate it away, pray it away, sweep it under the rug, don't deal with it, act like it don't exist, block it out. And those things couldn't be but the furthest thing, unfortunately, from the truth, right? All right. But yes, doesn't matter. It's what you're doing now. So now is the time, right? D.D. Wimley said earlier, what type of shadow work would be associated to have root work put on you, like a lack of protecting yourself spiritually? All right, so I just want to make sure I understand the question. I'm not sure if I do, but let me try to break this down correctly, and maybe you can type something in down at the end if I get it wrong. But what type of shadow work would be associated to have root work put onto you, like a lack of protecting yourself spiritually? I mean, if you're saying this in regards to somebody putting root work onto you and you trying to uncover it, right? If I think that's what you're saying, yes, shadow work in general, because like specifically what type of work would you be able to uncover that? Let's just say, for an example, invoking the personal daemon, for like this Black Mirror work that can be done for that. I mentioned the Black Ship book with Malthus, when you invoke your personal daemon and that daemon manifests, and you can get answers to specific questions. It's literally almost like having a conversation with the spirit or the demon. So it could be uncovered in personal invocation, or invoking the personal daemon to come forward, like shown in the Black Ship book. But that's if root work is being put on you, right? There basically are some basic things you should do first to put to the test, if that's what you're saying, right? There's ways of finding out, because as I said earlier, I'm not saying this is the case with you. I'm just speaking in general. I know a lot of people have been under that impression, and a lot of the times it was self-created, maybe by things put out there in the ethers, words or rumors spreading, or et cetera, where the person really started to believe it. Now, if you got some concrete evidence outside of that, if this is what you're saying, then that's a different story, right? But that would be the way. And then you would get that guidance of how to protect yourself spiritually. Now, there's things you could do right on the surface, quote unquote, to protect yourself spiritually, right? Because there are many different demons, gods, and goddesses that you can work with that are warrior type of energies that can protect you, assist you in fighting your battles, such as Set, right? Such as Kali, right? Well, you could do things right out the gate on your own to get the mind right and to get things activated going in the direction to alleviate that. So there's things you can do right out the gate. And then, yes, through that type of shadow work, you'd be able to get that, the answers to those questions, right? All right, this is a question from Kenneth MC. When tapping into the astral realm for shadow work and you realize that you have unwanted things, is neutralizing the energy enough to change? It can be sometimes, right? Because remember, when you're using the term neutralizing the energy, neutralizing isn't manipulating and changing it, right? So is that the solution as a whole? I'm probably going to tell you no, right? But if you need to neutralize something for a specific moment or a specific step to get to a greater step, that's when neutralizing the energy does apply. So yes, neutralizing the energy, it's not enough in its totality. It's enough for the moment. So you need to understand that. But that's a very good question. And I've found sometimes people just do that. I'm not saying this case to you, but sometimes people just neutralize the problem. They don't resolve it. Because true resolution of it, let's just say it's something that most things need to be redestroyed or deconstructed and then reconstructed again. That would be resolving the problem. Neutralizing it, just look at it. The best way I can describe it in the basic, most simplistic terms would be it's a temporary solution. Okay, so no, it wouldn't be, it's fully not enough, right? Yeah, that was talking to my son earlier, my older son. Yeah, so yeah, that's what you heard earlier. That was the gypsy goddess. Yeah, the Jungian perspective comment earlier from Antonio Noctifero, if I'm saying it right, or Nostifero. Hopefully I'm not butchering that. Carl Jung, as I've mentioned many times before, and many people are very familiar with his work, is a very popular psychiatrist and spiritual work. He's very popular in the occult left-hand path community. I can't tell you, and I'm sure you guys too have seen how many people will refer to his work. He's got some good writing work on the shadow self, right? He talks about it from a very psychological aspect. So yes, I would definitely, since you brought that up, I would definitely encourage people to take a look at that. Yeah, AA says yes. It's two comments earlier because it's in relation to kind of what we were talking about. Yeah, the microwave culture. We want everything quick. We've become so spoiled with this technology where it's crazy, right? Everything's fast, man. Fast food, the microwave, right? We don't want to wait for anything. We don't want to put no time, effort, and energy into anything no more. We want it now, which there's a good aspect to that. You should want and you should be very, to a degree, with discipline, aggressive in your approach. But you got to understand the whole process, right? And that's where people struggle. And that's a good metaphor. We do live in a microwave culture, right? Microwaves, so you throw it in the microwave, 30 seconds, heat it up, you got a meal. Some of us want that microwave meal in our spiritual path. We want to just throw it in the microwave. We want everything in 30 seconds. It just doesn't work like that, people. And for those that have been around, no, I don't ever promote this shit like that because it's bullshit. Anybody that's telling you and trying to sell you shit that's a quick fix, I'm telling you, stay away from them. They're dangerous because they got to hustle. They got a con. They got some bullshit they trying to run on you. Trust me when I tell you. Show me a person like that, and I will show you the hustle, and I will show you the con. Trust me when I tell you. Real easy. There's a certain way you approach individuals like that. It starts with a simple few lining of a certain way you bring questions to them. But long story short, it just doesn't exist, right? So that's where the patience factor comes in. And it is a never-ending learning and overcoming journey, right? One thing that I can tell you about this path, you get up every day. There's always some new challenge. There's always something great to conquer. And most importantly, there's always something new to learn. I don't think I've ever gotten up being on this path for years and said, oh, I'm good. Oh, I don't need to learn anything. Let me show you something. As your wisdom and insight grows, I've gone back to books I've read. How many of us has done this? I know a lot of you have experienced this. How many times have you gone back to books you've read multiple times and you start to see things you didn't see the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and seventh time you might have went through the book, right? That's confirmation right there that your insight and your awareness is opening up, right? That's why I say you could even learn from things you've already experienced and have had maybe a long time experience, but there's always something there to learn. Excuse me. All right. What else we got? I'm looking for questions. Some comments here. All right. Yeah, some people making comments, which is good. Just to give a quick summary. I see. What was it? Junior Kabanga, it's death itself. Cult isn't just earthly work. No. And as I said before, it's the harmonization of the physical and the spiritual, the objective and the subjective. It's death in the sense. It's not just, right? We die, as I've said many times before, there's mental death, there's emotional death, there's spiritual death, and then obviously there's physical death. There's many forms of death or destruction that we must go through in order to truly evolve into what we're destined to become, right? Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, and that's good. Another comment earlier. I'm just going to refer to you as Antonio so I don't butcher your last name. Yeah, we shouldn't be concerned with the mundane world only to the point, especially to the point where it's affecting us, right? Like I said, it shouldn't stop you from doing what you're supposed to be doing, regardless of what it is. I see people getting so caught up in it, and that's why I brought it up a while back earlier when I first came on. It just amazes me how people just get so easily sucked into that bullshit. And I laugh because I get stupid emails about it as if I give two shits. And this is why, if you're one of them that send me, this is why I don't respond. It's not because I'm being rude or disrespectful. It's just my way of telling you, I'm not interested. I don't give a fuck. I'm too busy doing other shit. I'm too busy trying to get my shit together. I'm too busy doing spiritual work. I'm too busy being occupied with things of much more of an important nature. I'm not worried about what's going on in the news. I'm not worried about what this celebrity did. I'm not worried about what this conspiracy happened. I'm not worried about what happened over here. There's a difference. Hey, look, you could be aware to a certain degree, right? I don't really watch the idiot box news. I might just stay basically abreast with world news on apps on either a tablet or a phone briefly. It's just a quicker way to I might just read headlines. If something catches my attention, I might dab into it. And then I might read a few lines and go, oh, I know what this bullshit is going on. And I just exit out. But I'm not the type of person to sit in front of a TV and like some of these people, I don't know how you could sit there and watch CNN for more than 15 minutes and not see the programming. I get sick to my stomach if I watch it for more than a few minutes. So I don't watch news on TV. I try to stay away from that, right? The idiot box is what it is. It's an idiot box, right? It really can shape the way you think. So yes, we should never be concerned to a degree where it's hindering our spiritual growth, no doubt. All right, Taylor Bach says, what is the reason for mythology and how it is best incorporated into ritual work? Let's start with that question first. Mythology is very important. You almost answered the question in your question Because when you understand the mythology and you're able to apply it to yourself on a personal level, see, mythology can be toxic when people try to debate the literalness of it. That's where you see all these people arguing and debating spiritual systems, cultures, and cultures that have a strong mythology. Religious people are in denial that their religion is a mythology. So it becomes foolishness when people, you're going to get stuck like Chuck when you try to debate the literalness of the mythology, right? That's where it can become toxic. But mythology always has a lot of symbols, metaphors, and hidden gnosis. And there's always something there that represents something. And there's a varying degrees of archetypes. And archetypes are not limited to what we're calling gods and goddesses, demons and spirits. An archetype can be a whole spiritual system. An archetype can be a whole philosophy, right? And in that mythology, there's usually a level of philosophy that's trying to be explained. And through metaphors, symbols, etc., there's always a hidden gnosis that the initiate, the practicing occultist, must be able to decipher, because only when he or she can decipher it can they apply it to their ritual work. When they apply it to their ritual work and they put it into practice, that's when they are now showing their wisdom. And through that wisdom of applying that, they are able to get the results desired. So mythology is very important, right? For the person that understands it, not for the person who wants to follow it like a religion, not for the person who wants to argue the validity of the literalness of it. That's where ignorance comes into play. It's like the person who it's like the person who wants to argue the validity. There are some religious people who believe everything in the Bible is literal. That's comical to me, because the Bible talks about unicorns and satyrs in the book of Job. So my question, I've always used basic common sense reasoning with them. Are unicorns real? Okay, be careful before you answer that. Are satyrs real? There's other shit in there I can pull out. Okay, when you read in the book of Judges, after David and them came back from war, it describes a ridiculous of a couple of 100,000 animals that were offered for slaughter. Are we to literally believe that hundreds of thousands of animals in a short period of time were slaughtered? Or were these people exaggerating these stories to get a point across? David and Goliath, real fact or fiction? Parting of the Red Sea, real fact or fiction? I mean, I know the answers to it. I'm just showing you how you can get fucking caught up arguing the literalness of some of these mythologies. And as I said before, when you look at the Bible, and the Bible is a toxic book when you have religious people and religious fools arguing dogmatic situations or dogmas. But you can use the Bible stories from an esoterical and occult perspective, right? You could look at the David and Goliath story as being literal, which there's a lot of things in there that are questionable. Or you can look at it as a symbolic story of, the lower or weaker self again, conquering their fears, the higher self conquering the weaker self. And you could look at Goliath representing your fears, your anxieties, your weaknesses. And David being the small person, it's a challenge. David has to defeat the great giant. That's the story of your life. It's going to show you must rise up and face the monster that you created, right? That's why one of the Patreon classes is an esoterical occult Bible study class. We get into a lot of that type of stuff, right? So I could take the whole book of the Bible from Genesis, minus all the stupidity people want to argue, and I can show you that it is an esoterical occult book if you look at it from its correct context, not use it in a religious dogmatic perspective. You could really do that with any mythology. So that's a very good question. So the mythology is effective, necessary when the individual understands it and can apply it to their ritual work. The second part, I think this answers part of it. Can we utilize the mythology of a particular god or goddess to unveil hidden aspects about ourselves? Most definitely. All these gods and goddesses, whether it's the Egyptian pantheon, whether it's the Klippa, whatever, They all project a certain level of consciousness, and they represent aspects of those consciousness, right? So that's what makes them character types / archetypes. So most definitely, the answer to that question is yes, right? Because I always use the example Tahuti, right? He's the scribe. He can be used to, and I bring him up because we just did a ritual last week called the Ritual of the Wisdom of Tahuti. And the ritual was centered on increasing and opening our psyche, increasing our level of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and how to apply that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Those are all character and some of the archetypes of Tahuti / Thoth, right? So I just give you that example in relation to your question. So most definitely, yes. Most definitely. That's how you should use them in your ritual work. Slim Lewis, to your question, can you please talk about your opinion on Mark Allen Smith's Primal Craft books, especially the Hecate Queen of Hell book and the Lucifer book? Now, I got to be honest, I haven't really read a lot of his books. The Hecate Queen of Hell book I do have. And with all the books I have, I've only breezed through it. But I could say this, right? Whether it's Mark Allen Smith, whether you're getting a perspective of Lucifer from Richard K. Page, whether you're getting it from Asenath Mason, whether you're getting it from Michael W. Ford, right? What I've found, everybody's going to have a certain perspective based on their experience. And having mentioning all that names, just like with myself, people that come across this channel here, there's going to be things you hear me say that resonate with you, that you do agree with. And there's going to be things you probably don't. I would just say in regards to, again, whether it's Mark Allen Smith, and I can't really speak on those two books you mentioned because I haven't read them thoroughly. So I'm not going to just sit here and speculate. But from what little I do know, and I'm trying to tie your question in as a whole to whatever author it is, teacher, or individual that you are getting information from on the subject, take from it what resonates with you and focus on that. Because I'm sure with all of them, including him, there's going to be things in there you agree with and disagree with. Like a lot of people bring up, what's the dude's name? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. EA coding, right? People always, and I've given my opinion on that, right? There's things I've seen. I'm not really feeling the style and the approach, and that's not being, I'm not trying to, be negative or put a downer in it. I've seen some stuff that I just think is a bunch of BS and not really when it comes to ritual work. But there's some things there you have to learn when there's things with an individual that you may not really be feeling or resonate with. There might be other things. So I say that to say it's up to you to decipher and what it is you're resonating with and not. So that's the best thing I can tell you in the moment for that question. When I go back or have some time, and go through them books more, I'll be able to maybe a little bit more detailed in reference to what I read there. But I haven't read them thoroughly, so I don't want to sit here and answer or not give a thorough answer is what I'm saying. Okay. Serpent-headed Mass says the world is going to do what it does. I'm only concerned about standing on my square here and now. That's the approach, because that's the only thing that's important. We must be, as I was saying earlier, in the moment of the now. People want to be everywhere but the now. They're worried about tomorrow. They're worried about next week, next year. And as I said earlier, don't have plans for the future. That's not what I'm saying. But make sure you're taking care of the now. Because in that looking over here and there and helping everybody else, and the only person that's suffering is you. I keep telling people that we're in the shadow work classes on Patreon, we're attacking different archetypes of the self, the warrior archetype, the passive archetype, the masochist archetype, right? The narcissistic archetype, right? We all have these characteristics to certain degrees, and we tackle all those things in the shadow work class, and we're finding out there's also through the passive aspect of our nature, some people are being taken advantage of, because some people mistake people's kindness for weakness, right? And some people who can't express themselves, right, who struggle, who just can't say no, or feel the need that they're obligated through different forms of guilt to feel like they have to help somebody. Like one thing we discussed in the shadow work class is sometimes the guilt and obligation we feel to family members, right? This comes up a lot. And I said before, just because somebody is related to you by blood, that doesn't mean you're obligated to do everything and anything for them. Because if they're an asshole, all that means you're family only in the sense that you are related by blood. That don't mean you family though. And you're going to find out in this path, and a lot of people are finding this out in their shadow work, your biggest poison on this path is your family. You're going to find out it's people directly connected to you that are the problem to some degree. I'm not saying some of us are blessed with great family members, right? Some of us have great relationships with our mother, father, our brothers, sisters, cousins, whatever. But I'm saying you're going to find out when it comes to people in our life, it's the people that are closest to us that usually are the biggest problems, knowingly or unknowingly, right? And people are finding this out. And what I've learned, a mode to live by, I don't give a fuck if a motherfucker, hey man, we family. That don't mean I'm obligated to do shit for you if you're an asshole. It just means we related by blood. Family isn't family just because you're related by blood. Family is family based on actions and how you deal with each other. Because I consider some people family that aren't blood related to me, but they act like family's supposed to act, right? You know what I'm talking about. So we're learning these things in the shadow work class. Very important because it changes our mindset and approach. We're also learning in the shadow work class that sometimes the biggest problem we have through our insecurities and fears is the person we lay it down with every night. Like I said, if you that female, you out there busting your ass all day working, and you come home and your man sitting on the couch all day playing PlayStation, smoking weed, that's your dumb ass. That's your stupidity. You're allowing that. But the question is why? Why are you such an insecure individual where you allow that? I can never understand. How many clients I get over the years, they call me and they're in these bad relationships. I got this dude, he's living with me now. He don't want to work. He don't want to do shit. And then we probe and we find out how they got there. You allowed them there. Same thing with a dude who cries wolf all the time that he's with some chick who's a gold digger, who don't want to work, but all she wants to do is spend the dude's money, get her nails done, go shopping and all that. That's cool. You do that for your lady when you can. But if she's not contributing something and you allow her to stay around and be lazy and don't do shit, don't cry wolf. That's on you. Okay? But we try to dig deep and find out, why do you allow it? And usually there's a deeper reasoning there why it happens, because it's something that they picked up along the way in their journey that creates that insecurity and feels. Like, always ask yourself, what makes a person, man or woman, stay in a bad relationship, a toxic relationship where there's verbal abuse, could be even physical abuse sometimes. You understand? Or there's just total disrespect. What makes a person stay in that? Shadow work is the only thing that's going to help you understand that. Now, maybe you come from a line of lineage. Maybe you watched your mother grow up and she was in abusive relationships all your life. And psychologically, right? Psychologically, you don't realize how that's affected you. And you find yourself naturally doing it. There's other people who bounce from relationship to relationship, bad relationship to relationship, and never take a break. Right? They go from one bad relationship and they go right into another bad relationship. And the question is, how come they don't ever take a time out and take some time for themselves to get them to understand themselves and why this is happening? Usually a person that's jumping in from one bad relationship right into another, they got some insecurities, some fears there. They can't be alone, right? Could be, a list goes on and on. These are the things that need to address in shadow work so you could break the cycle on the chain. Because when you break the cycle on the chain, that's the only way things are going to change, right? At some point, you're going to have to put a stop to it by making that change. And that's why it goes back to what I was saying earlier in the beginning of the class. We're going to find out 90% or more of the time we're in situations we're in simply by the choices and the decisions we make. And that's cause and effect. That's all karma is, cause and effect. Cause, the decisions you make. affect the results of those decisions. It's that simple. Don't spook it out. Don't get into all. I know as I said before, there's so much shit out there, theories, and that's cool. I'm trying to keep this shit so simple for you that if you understand it on a very simple level, it's going to be easy for you to master. That's it. So very important. All right. All right, what else we got? This was from Yi Grigor down there. And Harufi Set is depicted as emerging out of Hebrew. It depends on what illustration you're looking at. Yes, in the sense, like I was saying earlier, the Set emerging from Hebrew, because how we look at the Set Hebrew battle on the occult on the left-hand path, we don't look at it as the traditional Kemetic person does, right? Because Heru is always depicted as some savior figure, right? Some people even go to the point of the mistake of liken it to the Christ consciousness, Jesus energy stuff. I don't really fuck with none of that stuff. We look at it, the mythology of it, and how we apply it to ourselves on the occult of the left-hand path. That emerging of Set from Heru is also a representation of Set conquering Heru, or the lower self. So yes, again, mythology, you can look at it, and I forgot who brought that question up. We were just talking about mythology becomes effective when the individual, regardless of what their personal take on it, when they could apply it to themselves and use it in their personal ritual work and get results. That's all that matters, right? So yes, we can look at it in regards to that. CJ Whaley says, is there a purpose of Kabbalah without the religious influence on the left-hand path? See, here's the problem with that. You should. I don't really look at the Kabbalah or Kabbalistic studies as left-hand path, to be honest with you. You should understand it if you do study the Qliphoth, or what they call the Tree of Death. So there's always going to be some level of what one would call religious overtones to it, because there's no way you're going to have the Kabbalah without some religious overtones, right? Some will even say that carries over into the Qliphoth, because they make the mistake of thinking bands like Lucifer and Samael, some make the mistake of tying their origins back to Hebrew mysticism, and that's a mistake. Because when you look at a lot of other, and then when you get into the 22 tunnels of Set, which has nothing to do with really the Kabbalah, Hebrew mystic religious approach. Because remember, the Kabbalah are the lesser mysteries of the Qliphoth, right? Because the Qliphoth is the antithesis to the Tree of Life. Because the Tree of Life really is the Tree of Death, because it's not telling you about your true spiritual existence and the primordial chaotic energy that you emerged from. I know when you get to the Yesod and the Kepler and all that stuff, it tries to go into the deep aspects of spirituality, but it still doesn't take you back to the void where all that stuff emerged, right? So what they're calling the Tree of Death is false, because the Tree of Qliphoth, or what they call the Tree of Death or Death, is incorrect, because when you're going into the void, right? When you're going into the abyss, you're going to a place in your subconscious mind that has no parameters, that has no boundaries, right? The problem is, whether it's the Kabbalistic mysteries, Hebrew mysticism, Christian spirituality, whatever, there's always these parameters, there's these layers, there's these realms. And then where do you go when you get to the top of the Tree of Life? Where do you go? Where does existence evolve from that point moving on? Ask somebody that studies the Kabbalah, and they'll give you a bunch of mumbo jumbo. There's only one thing you have to cross through the Sitra Achra and go through the void. And this is where now, when you break down the different Qliphoths, right? And what people fail to realize, why you see at the root of the Qliphoth Samael and Lilith, because they are the facilitators of the cliffs. You see Lilith at that 10th cliff going into the 11th. She's the one that pulls you through the Sitra Achra, through the void, the abyss. If the student or the adept shows that they are lusting and thirsting for knowledge. See, Lilith's lust goes beyond sexuality. Her true lust that she responds to are those who lust for knowledge and wisdom and power. People fail to realize that with Lilith. And contrary to belief, as I've said many times before, Lilith is not an easy spirit to connect with. Because I hear a lot of people have told me stories, and sometimes I'll sit there and listen, and I'll say that's not really, or that wasn't connecting with Lilith. Especially when it's a person where everything with Lilith is sex this, sex that. There's so much more to Lilith than that. Trust me. And again, as I've said before, I'm not saying there is a strong sexual energy with Lilith, no doubt. But that's not the only aspect, right? So I don't think, long story short, to CJ Whaley's question, there's always going to be some type of overtones to the Kabbalah, because it has its root, or it is connected to religion. I still would encourage people to explore it. Yeah, even some of the books that Crowley's put out on Kabbalah, check those books out, right? You should at least have a basic understanding of it. But I never looked at the Kabbalah, quote unquote, or Kabbalistic mysteries as really left-hand path. It's mysticism, right? Kind of look at it in regards to that. Now, I'm not saying there's things you can't learn from it. It's not what I'm saying. But in relation to that question, I don't think you could fully escape some form of religious overtones. It's there because it has its root in it to a degree, right? But it's how you perceive it. Keep that in mind, right? Because I know some people who are monotheistic religious practices, whether they're Jews or Christians, that study Kabbalah, but they study it from a very religious mind frame, right? There's that level or perception of Kabbalah. Then there's some of us who look at it more from a mystical perspective, because it helps us understand it as being a prelude to the Qliphoth, right? So I think your approach and your perspective and your understanding also is going to play a large part in that. All right. All right, what else we got? Jenny says, I noticed though there is a lot of people who use their magic to settle petty personal beefs. Left Hand Path on YouTube do a lot of beefing. Always wondered what the percentage of that is. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I was talking about. You stay away from all that shit, right? You understand? Because that's all for show. That I told you, when you got people that are on YouTube all day, keep this in mind, man. Sometimes things are about common sense. I've said this many times before over the last several years. If you got a motherfucker that's on YouTube all day, every day, that's what they do for a living. And not all, but some of them, they're on there recruiting victims. I keep telling you guys this stuff. And I know exactly what you're talking about, right? There's a bunch of people on there who they do it for views. They're on there beefing. First of all, I'm just going to say this, bottom line. A motherfucker that got to be on there all day talking about how powerful they are, that's a weak motherfucker. Trust me when I tell you. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for that gift of gab. Don't fall for all that game. It's that silent motherfucker that ain't saying nothing. That's the motherfucker you need to worry about. Because a true motherfucker that got real power isn't going to be openly spitting game like that. You know the old adage, real bad boys move in silence. Ain't no real bad boy or bad girl going to be on the internet putting all their business out there. Right? That's common. Use common sense, people, with this shit. Stop believing the bullshit. Because I can tell you, the real motherfuckers that's doing real work, you don't hear nothing about them. They in the dark. Right? They doing work where you can't see. And they sure as fuck ain't getting on YouTube with diarrhea of the mouth talking all the shit that they claim that they can do. I don't want a motherfucker talking, because if I go deal with a motherfucker that's on the internet blabbing everything, I've defeated myself before I even begin. Think about it for a minute. But it's hype. If you fall for the hype, weak-minded people are going to fall for the hype, the sensationalism, because it feeds off of their emotions. And some people that have that gift of gab, they're good at that. And like I say, I don't hate on the dudes or the girls or the women, the men, whoever that are doing it, because hey, if they doing it, I ain't knocking their hustle. I kind of feel I gotta say the people that are stupid are the ones falling for it. You understand? It's not, hey, can't, it's that old saying, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? That's what that means. So they ain't the ones out there hustling, running the game. You can't be mad at them, you can't hate them. But you gotta get on the ones that are falling for the bullshit. So to the people that are talking to the people that maybe listening, maybe watch this recording later, if you're falling for the bullshit, stop. Do things for yourself. But we don't, as far as practitioners on this, we don't get involved in that stuff. I don't get involved in any of that stuff. Stay out of that stuff. It's all gossip. It's all slander. I wouldn't now. Don't get me wrong. It's different if a motherfucker come wrongfully out and attack you. Then you rightfully defend yourself. But I wouldn't voluntarily get involved in any of that shit. Now, if a motherfucker's gonna come out and say something, I'm not gonna sit there and take it either. I ain't talking no turn the other cheek like Jesus bullshit, like the Christians try to tell you. No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying don't voluntarily get involved in that. Let that shit, let other fools get caught up in that stuff. But you're right. It does exist. No, Jenny, earlier I was talking about, there's a section in a book called The Black Ship by Malthus called Concerning the Ancestors, I was referring to earlier when we were talking about the ancestors. That's a section in that book, The Black Ship, called Concerning the Ancestors, that I was suggesting earlier that people really take a good look at, because it's one of the few occult left-hand path books that shows you how to work with your ancestors from a left-hand path occult perspective, not a traditional spiritual perspective, right? That's what I was referring to earlier. So earlier, another good question. If someone is a host, what's the best way to dislodge it? So if you've been possessed and a spirit has resided in you and is using your body as a host, right? And this can be going on for a while and you don't know this. And then people will say there's usually some telltale signs, and sometimes the person doesn't see it. Sometimes it takes people around them to see it. They notice erratic changes in their behavior. They notice them developing habits or characteristics they never had before, or developing addictions to food, drugs, or certain behaviors that they never exhibited before. Sometimes the person voluntarily notices that there's something wrong with them. It can be either way. So you would first, in order to dislodge, the term you use, or to get rid or remove a spirit that has taken host within you as a form of possession, you would first have to identify, one, what's going on, two, what kind of spirit it is. If we were talking about ancestral spirits, if it's an ancestral spirit, it's a very simple process, a very simple ancestral ritual that has to be done to dislodge or remove that spirit. Now, if it's a spirit from a particular pantheon, that's a whole nother story, right? So you would first have to gather the data and information of what you're dealing with to determine how you would dislodge or address it, right? So there's a process to that, and it's different depending on what it is. No, probably simple spiritual bath is not going to get rid of it. And I got to be careful when I use this word, because you hear this word, it's religious. The term, or what people call, like you see in religion, usually there is a rite, and I've been involved in these rites, several of them over the years in different pantheons, like in Ifa, for an example. And I've done a few of these with my godmother in the past. That's one pantheon. In our path, there's a way to do it. To exorcise, or what some call exorcism, some form of an exorcism rite has to be done sometimes to remove it, because when it gets to a point or to a degree or a level where there might be a certain level of action needs to take place on a very more intense or deeper level, it could be to that degree, it could be something very simple that the person can do themselves. So there's a lot of gray area in that just depends, right? So it could be very simple, something very a rite that one can carry out themselves, or it could be very, very intricate where sometimes assistant or outside help in along with the individual who has to be a part of the process, right? Has to be done. So it depends. This is a question by Joshua X. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really do angel or Kabbalah magic. So the only opinion I can really give on that, I don't tell people what they should and should not do, because I find, like, it's just my opinion, like lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, working with angels, and I've studied that whole 72 angels of the lesser name, the 72 angels of the greater name, which is really the Goetia, right? We deal with, because that's just the other 72 that we're talking about here. Long story short, to me, when you're looking at that stuff, it's showing you the quote unquote, what some would call agreeable side of your nature and disagreeable side of your nature, right? That's one way to look at it, right? It's also showing you the powers of light and darkness, right? And really what it shows me is you need both, right? But as far as working with angels and Kabbalah magic, I don't really do that. So I can't really speak on it. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I can only tell you from my experience, I just don't do it. I don't work with it. I just don't have no connection with that. A few years back, I tried a little bit of that work. It just didn't resonate with me. That doesn't mean it's not effective. Now, a good book and a good person, in my opinion, who I would refer people to in regards to that, because I think he gives a good breakdown on both sides, is Bal Cadman. I know a lot of you are familiar with Bal Cadman. Check out his Citra Aqua book, right? He has a good breakdown of that in there. If you want to understand the Kabbalah, the 72 angels of the lesser and the greater name, he comes from a very neutral perspective. So I do read up and study about it to be aware, but I don't practice it. So that's the best I can answer that. Will Knife says, do you think psychoactive substances generally help or hurt shadow work, provided they're used only in the context of doing a little work? All right, so let me explain something. Let me show you. It's funny you bring that up. Show you something. It's funny you bring that up. Oh, something I'm working with right now. Now, there's different things to take into consideration, right? And let me explain. All right, so when we're talking about whether it's hallucinogens, whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's shrooms or psychedelics in general, right? The goal and the perspective of that is to activate the DMT molecule, right? It produces a certain level of that DMT molecule, which opens the individual up to certain spiritual experiences. Now, I've always said this before, right? Which is very important. I've always said this before, right? If you're going to use, and I don't judge anybody that does, if you're going to use psychedelics, hallucinogens, or any of those things you refer to, make sure it's good quality stuff. Make sure you're using it correctly. And there's nothing wrong with using it in the context of your work at all. But I also say to the individual, you should also be able to activate the DMT molecule without the aid of hallucinogens or psychedelics, right? If you can only do it using psychedelics or hallucinogens, then that's where it becomes a problem. But nothing wrong with using it in the context of the work in a disciplined environment. There are mushroom superfoods that help enhance that DMT molecule through a natural process, not just through what one would call just I hate to use the word complete trip, right? Where somebody goes on that complete trip or ride. Like here's one here. And this is something that I'm utilizing right now, which is a mushroom master blend, right? Certified organic, a blend of different muscle, a blend of different, I don't know if you could see it with the backdrop, and I'm having issues with the camera, but I don't know if you can see it. You may not be able to. Not sure. Yeah, I think I pulled it back. You should be able to see it. It's called Ohm mushrooms. Now, these aren't the same mushrooms you would use in a full psychedelic trip, right? But they serve a multitude of, whether it's different aspects, it works on a cellular level, right? If you understand and you look at the blend. So there's things you can use that is a natural, gradual process that happens naturally, just through as you're growing. And then there's enhanced like psychedelics or shrooms or ayahuasca and things you can use that give you that instant activation, right? So no, there's nothing wrong with using it in the context of your work. One, just as long as you're using it responsibly and it's coming from a credible source, right? Very important. Okay. All right. So, question earlier from Antonio. Not Antonio. I'm just going to refer to you as Antonio. I said that earlier. Are these ancestors supposed to be deceased members of my specific family or the cultural forefathers and mothers of my land and country? Both. Right? Because now I've talked about a couple of different things, right? It's a connection to both because there is that broad bloodline and then there's that direct bloodline. But we also have to factor in, you also have ancestral spirits that are not ancestral bloodline spirits, right? Some people have spirits that have been in their genealogy and get passed down from generation to generation, right? It could be a warrior gladiator type of spirit. It could be a specific period, spirit from a time that goes back to a certain period, and you'll see this ancestral spirit has been appearing in the genealogy for X amount of years. So it's both, and that could be connected to, as you described, your cultural forefathers and mothers of your land and country. There is an aspect of that. That's all connected in that spectrum. And usually the clarity of that is uncovered through your ancestral work. When those spirits make themselves known, you will know what's what and who is who, right? So that's a very good question, and I'm glad you bring that up because I did want to include, spiritual ancestors, right? That fall into that category that you described. And it can go specific back to your land and country or point of origin. Yes, right? So there is an aspect of that. It's both, right? It's not just one or the other. And again, the clarity comes as you start consistently doing that work with your ancestors, right? What else we got? Skipped on. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, that's where I live. Antonio says, what's a good low budget way to begin shadow work? Low budget meaning fuel, tools, and small working space. Shit, it's not about the size of the space. You don't need a lot of working tools, right? Again, start with the shadow work journal. I would encourage you again, because again, for the sake of time here, I go through that in depth in the shadow work classes. You don't need no large glamorous space. You need a simple place where you could sit down and work in quiet. But to go through the exercises and the rituals right now, I can't really do that here right now in this amount of time. You don't need no glamorous space, and you don't need a lot of working tools. And you'll see that in the shadow work classes on Patreon. The tools are minimum, and the space required is just a small, quiet space, right? You could even do some of these things outside and just find a quiet, small place, right? So there's nothing expensive about it. There's nothing intricate. You just need this and a quiet, small working space. That's it. But if you get the chance, check. I would encourage you check out the shadow work class. I give you step-by-step details, exercises. The beginning exercise, all you need is a quiet, dark room, nothing else. Literally, is how I start people to show out. The silence and the darkness is where the true thoughts emerge. And the first exercise I give people in that class, that's all you need is the silence and the darkness. You'll understand it more, right? But yeah, you don't need anything. Long story short, to your question, you don't need anything elaborate or expensive. Real simple. This is from Mika. Speaking of symptoms, when I went to the doctor and found out my vitamin D is very low, among other things, so now I have to take double portions of vitamin D2 and change my diet hard work because I love to. Eat my iron levels was like 318. Well, here's the thing. This is what I was talking about a couple of years ago, back in 2020, when the corona thing first emerged. One pattern they noticed, and obviously me being born and raised in New York and living there pretty much my whole life and leaving there several years ago and moving here, I'm speaking to a lot of you people in colder environments. People in environments where they see less sunlight on a daily basis. When you live in cold environments, or environments that have less days of sunlight, like I believe if you do the research, Seattle has the least days of sunlight more than any place in the United States. It's also why they claim the suicide and depression rate is high in places like that. But you will also see a severe lack of vitamin D deficiency in colder climates and in climates that get less days of sunlight throughout the course of a year, right? I also bring this up in regards to one thing they noticed, and I got to be careful what I say, because when you say the C word on the internet now, it gives all types of monitoring device, people monitoring shit now. So I'm not saying anything, just to put it out there for those that could be probing. I'm not saying anything that nobody doesn't know. But they noticed that people in that first wave that came down, quote unquote, with severe COVID, and COVID in general, had serious levels of vitamin D deficiency. And in reading this, I never understood why they wanted people to stay indoors. Because as I've said before, the most natural form of vitamin D you can get is the sun. So they should have been telling people to go outside, quote unquote, and social distance, quote unquote, because I almost said to myself, did they want to kill people quicker? Because if they found out that vitamin D was the serious, they you pull these stats up, and vitamin D is a key component to have the immune system function at its purity, at its strength. So why would you encourage people not to go outside unless you wanted to kill them quicker? They also noticed during the Spanish flu, if you do your research, and people keep forgetting, the Spanish flu was a world pandemic too for a while. It lasted, I believe, 5 to 6 years if you do the research. And one thing they also realized when I was doing my research on it, they started to realize when a lot of these medical facilities back then, remember, they didn't have the technology or the medicine to deal with something like that. So it was more catastrophic. But they found out when a lot of the indoor facilities in these medical places became overpacked and they had to start putting patients outside, they started to realize people who were outside, patients that were outside getting direct sunlight, were recovering quicker than those who were inside. Okay? See, they don't tell you this stuff. So I say that to your question, D, and I'm curious, why not D3? And I see you put D2 there, unless that was a specific form of D that was diagnosed as a deficiency. Okay? But vitamin D is critical. And because it needs to be absorbed, you should take it with food. It's the best way of absorption. Here's another thing you may or may not know with vitamin D. It should be taken closer to nighttime because it could also help you sleep better. And that's the other thing they won't tell you, because vitamin D has all types of effects on the immune system and the neurological response of your nervous system, right? And if you look at that in relation to what they were claiming with some of the damaging effects of COVID, a lot of it, quote unquote, was in relation to D. Okay. Just throw a few little tidbits out there. And again, take it more closer in the evening time with food. And you'll also find out your sleep patterns will be improved. Trust me when I tell you. Okay. Oh man, shit skipped. Not sure I understand. I self-loaded master. Is cracking jokes a lower or high self-activity? It depends on the jokes, right? It could be both, right? What else we have? Hollow Gator, what's going on? Yeah, sorry you wasted time before you got here. It's all good. But you're here now. All right, what else we got? All right, looking for some questions for the sake of time. I'm going to skip down past some of the comments. This is a good comment, too. Earlier, this was I self-loaded master. That's why it's important to stand on your square in the now, right? Not the later, not tomorrow, not yesterday. So you don't feel regret and guilt in the future from yourself or, more importantly, anyone else. That's a very good statement, right? And yes, family, Jenny, family can most definitely trip you up. I'm telling you, right? They're your biggest challenge and test on this path. You're going to find that out. Your direct family is your biggest challenge and test on this path. When it comes to people, I'm talking about, for the most part. Yeah, there might be some people out there going, "Oh, my family's great, and I don't know." But I'm saying on a wide scale level, you will find most people will tell you that that's their biggest challenge when it comes to people in their life, right? What else we got? Yeah, and you're right, Oliver. I've had people. That's why I say family. I got people that I know that aren't bloodline family that are more family to me than blood family, right? Because to me, I've learned over the years, family is not your family because you're blood related. Family is the way you treat people, the way you deal with people. To me, family represents a certain way of how we deal with each other, right? It's a certain bond, it's a certain respect, and it's a certain way we deal with each other. We got a lot of motherfuckers that are blood related to us, their family, in the sense that they're blood related, but they don't act like family, is what I'm trying to say. We learn this lesson hard in life. And you move on, right? That's all. You just move on. But that's part of your shadow work, recognizing that. You must make the adjustments. One of the first things we did in some of the earlier classes was, what things in our life do we have to really immediately of importance address that we need to cut and remove from our life? That's person, places, and things, right? What we had to identify those. And some people had to get to work right away because there were some critical things that needed to be addressed. So, yeah. All right, what else we got? Everything's good, JR. Good to see you here. Yeah, multiverses was a last minute thing. It's all right. You're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. Whatever time you get here, you're here, right? I self-loaded Masperiti is the only that I put my money at, and I took the long way. J.R. Bales. Yeah, hey, but it's all right. You know, these are life lessons we learn. Like I say, man, we're all, you know, we're gonna make mistakes. It's okay as long as we learn from them. Nobody's perfect. It's all part of the journey. It becomes a problem when we keep making the same mistakes. So I say that to simply say, as long as we are learning from our mistakes, that's part of the journey. That's part of the learning process. And also, that goes back for those that came late. That's also part of what I was talking about earlier. That's where also being patient with ourselves comes in. So, yeah. Yeah, Antonio, that's true. A lot of people on the path of consciousness and spirituality have probably been exposed to some degree Santeria slash Palo. Very true. And this is why you always hear me talk about our nationality and ethnicity plays a large part in the deprogramming process, because some of us, depending on our nationality slash ethnicity, have come up where we were influenced through those cultures and upbringings where spirituality slash religion was a very strong influence, where there's some people, it was a very minor influence, right? So, but you're right. When it comes to most Latinos, and it could be Puerto Ricans, it could be Cubans, Dominicans, etc. You are correct. There's always some type of residual effect of Santeria and Palo, right? And that's a thing that has to be decoded and deprogrammed, right? But that's what I'm saying. And we address that in the shadow work class. There's a whole section we have in there on the shadow work classes on Patreon. The effects of your cultural upbringing. How do you think that affected you on a psychological level, and what have you carried over of that into the present day? Right? We address that. See, like I say, man, shadow work there's so many levels, and it's so very detailed and intricate. We're not leaving any of it untouched, to the point that that's an ongoing class that pretty much is never going to end, because every month there's something new we're tackling. And now I got them each working every month where we're focusing on a specific spirit, God slash goddess, demon, whatever you want to refer to he or she or it as, and we're working with that spirit for the month, right? This is now because this is where we're at. But we didn't start out like that. We had to get there to get to that point, right? So yeah, it's a lot, man. Yeah, that's quoting me from previous JR. Yes, there comes a time where you have to show and prove on this path. That's why I've said for years you can't fake the funk on this path. And it's not just show and prove to others, it's to show and prove to yourself, because you're going to be tested into that which you claim to have confidence and personal belief in, not religious belief, right? There's a difference when you have personal belief based on what you know and what you've experienced. That's a different type of personal belief as opposed to dogmatic or religious belief in having trust in things you can't confirm or prove. That's two different things. But yes, you'll have to. None of us are obsolete of that, right? What else? Damn, skipped on me. Shit. This thing bugs out sometimes. Where we at? Where we are? Where we are? Where we at? Okay, here it is. Look, things skipping a little bit on me. I'll try to remember where I left off. Yes, you can activate your DMT energetically through your ritual work. You can activate it through mantras, because it's really activated when your vibrational frequency is activated at such a high speed or rate. Okay. Yeah. And that's why the real science in that activation and activating your spiritual powers is through vibrations and frequencies. So most definitely you can, right? Yeah, the Om must. Yeah, this is good stuff. I put it up earlier, so I see Hollow Brigade. Are you familiar with it? This is good stuff, and it's not that expensive. This will help. This will help in your spiritual work, right? I still take the monatomic Ethereum gold. I don't take it all the time, right? And I would definitely make sure you're taking a good quality. The brand that I take is the one Dr. Delbert Blair introduced to me back in 2014. I think it was 2013, right? And they have it in powder form. I take the mushroom blend there, and this will enhance you. I'm telling you, man, there's things you can do naturally to enhance it where you don't, have to just do it that way. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way in the context of your work in a controlled environment. Hold on, I'm gonna get you the brand, and I always forget it. I've been. You think I don't feel like walking into the cabinet to go grab it, but I have it here on my. Because that's on the other side of the house. I'm not really feel like going over there. I know they sleeping over there. So hold on, I'll show you something. I forgot the name of the company. I'm just so used to the bottle, and I have it on. I just natural reorder. It just comes. I don't know. Ethereum gold. I know I have it in my box. It's due to come. I'm down to my last few. Now with the monatomic gold, you don't need to take that every day. Okay. And I'll explain in a minute. I just want to find a brand for those that might be interested. Hold on. Be careful because there's a lot of bullshit out there too. Oh, here it is. Harmonic Enterprises. Harmonic Enterprises. It's about $24-$25 a bottle. That's the one back in 2013, 2014 that Dr. Delbert Blair recommended to me. He even still, Tony, who's the brother that has continued, his legacy and is still running his site. If you're familiar with Dr. Delbert Blair's site, still up. Tony still does some things, podcasts. I believe he's got a YouTube channel for the site and everything. I can't recall it offhand. But I take the monatomic. You don't need to take it all the time. I know it tells you on I don't take it every day. I may take it every couple of days. And I can tell you the monatomic gold, the Ethereum gold, because what it does is it repairs all your junk DNA. It does enhance, man, it enhances your dreams like a motherfucker, man. And I can tell you, and this is why I space it out. I don't take it every single day. It's just not necessary. But I can tell you it enhances your spiritual work. It gives you more focus. It gives you more clarity. But it really will enhance your dreams. I can tell you the dreams be off the chart. So the Om mushroom blend, the mushroom superfood is really good. I would check that out. You can get that on Amazon. They sell, I got 90 grams here, and I think it's like 3.5 ounces. They sell bigger ones. And even with that, you could pace yourself. You could take it every day for a little bit and take a little bit of a break off of it. Just like anything, when you're taking supplements like this, your body does start to build a natural resistance to it. So you should take little breaks, especially on these type of supplements. I'm not talking about like your everyday needs like vitamin D and shit like that. I'm talking about supplements, right? These type of supplements, you should take little gaps. Like even a lot of people use golden seal, echinacea, which I like to drink the echinacea and vitamin C tea when needed. But even stuff like that, your body builds up an immunity to it. You should take breaks, right? I should do a class maybe on some of this stuff, but obviously making a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not telling you what you should do, but this is a certified organic mushroom master blend. This shit's the truth. I can tell you that. And you will feel the difference. And that Harmonic Enterprises. Now the the monatomic gold or the Ethereum gold, there's two ways you could take it, right? They have the powdered form where it has a little scoop and you just put it under your tongue and you just let it dissolve under your tongue. That's usually the best way to take it. Their capsule, though, form is very effective too. I've used both, right? I've done classes on the monatomic gold going years back. I show people the origin of it. I can show you where it is in the Torah, in the Old Testament, and the Bible. I can get into that now, and I could take it back. It actually goes back to ancient Egypt, right? But it's a very powerful form of the philosopher's stone and alchemy. So yes, there's things. This all came up from the question earlier. There's a lot of things in a gradual natural process you can do to enhance that DMT molecule, most definitely. Eric Jones says, why would a spirit or deities want a blood offering? Well, I asked the same thing to Christians and Jews in the Bible, because my question was always, that God of the Bible was a bloodthirsty, he loved blood, because they was killing animals in that Bible left and right. That's my whole point. I've asked that question, right? Why do spirits want blood, right? From a religious perspective, I'll give there's a couple of different answers to that, or there's a couple of things you have to look at. Most religious people, we got to start there in religion, because the Bible is filtered with blood sacrifice from animals. As I said, that Old Testament God, he was a monster. He wanted you to kill bulls and calves and sheep and goats and oxen. He wasn't asking for the small animals, right? So when we talk about that animal blood sacrifice, that's one form. I never understood that, period. Now, in the occult or the left-hand path, right, blood is used in a very small, safe way, not contrary to the other shit that you see. There's a lot of bullshit out there. The only reason why spirit, it's usually a gesture in certain rituals, because the blood contains the very vital essence or life force of a living entity or individual. Blood is only offered in small amounts in certain ritual work if the individual chooses. It's not mandatory. It's not necessary. It is done in certain ritualistic practices to enhance the power of the ritual. So we have to make that clear. By all means, it is not mandatory or necessary, right? Just want to be clear on that. But it's utilized because the vital life force and power and essence is in the blood. So it's used to make pacts. It's given as a gesture or a token, as an offering, to further strengthen that bond between the spirit and the person. It's also used per se in African spiritual systems like Ifa and Santeria, where they believe that you can transfer up energy into the blood and offer it to the spirits. That's from a traditional perspective. So long story short, I say that it depends on what path we're talking about. But when you look at religion and spirituality, again, we have to start modern day. I've asked that question years ago. Why did the God of the Bible require all that blood sacrifice of all those animals from them human beings? And the next question is, what type of God were we dealing with in that Bible, right? So you have to start there and work your way back, right? It's no different, for an example, like when you see in certain mystical orders, or like even in the mafiosa, amongst the mafiosa families, they draw a little bit of blood, prick their blood, and make a blood pact, right? So a lot of times it was done as to create or make a pact, because the vital essence or the life is in the blood. There's a term, now we're blood brothers, right? You make a pact, now we're blood brothers, right? So it's usually done for a spiritual, ritualistic purpose. Now that other shit, there's other sinister people out there that take it to another level. But unfortunately, we can't categorize everybody into that box. I can only speak from my perspective. All that other shit, I don't mess with any of that stuff. That's just me. And I don't, to each his own. But when you understand responsibly the spiritual aspect of why blood is used in certain rituals, and again, by choice, it's not mandatory. I want to make that clear. You can work this path without ever utilizing it to any form or degree. I just got to make that clear. Because in the past, I've gotten emails from people, oh, so you can't be on this path if you don't work with blood? No, I never said that. Don't put words in my mouth, because people have emailed me in the past. Did you say on your video? No. Go back and look. And if you're going to send me an email about some shit, give me the video and the time frame so I could go look at it. I ain't going to go back and look through all my damn videos. You see, I got about damn near 600-700 on here. You think I'm going to go back and find the one you're talking about? You know, so it depends on the perspective of the question. But it's a good question. All right. What else? All right. Thing jumped a little bit on me. I'm going to have to skip down. Sorry. We're going to wrap this up soon. Thing be doing that. Be getting his own mind sometime. All right. So this one just jumped out at me. Where it jumped to all three, Trident 72, brother Taj says, all three pillars in my journey have been crucial in my spiritual development. That's what I'm talking about. Started with no idea in the beginning what a ride this would be. Ultimately, I'm grateful for the lessons, for the growth. And I could attest to that on a personal level, because I know. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, why would people lacking vitamin D, when COVID hit, they should have told everybody, man, safely go outside and get as much sunshine as you can. I know I was outside like a motherfucker, boy. I remember when I was at home and things was on shutdown, I was laying low. I remember I was going out every day with my little man. We was going out there on the street, hitting balls into the net, hockey balls. We was roller skating. I mean, we was out there getting that sun, boy. Look, this is why we got to do our own research. The key, I can't stress enough, there's two things you need to understand about any coronaviruses. Forget just this one. Coronavirus isn't new, right? It's SARS. Any respiratory disorder, right? There's two key things you need to focus on: your immune system and inflammation. Inflammation is what causes most of these diseases. Be knowledgeable of the food that you're eating. Be knowledgeable of the certain vitamins and minerals you're lacking. Lack of D can cause serious inflammation. And when there's inflammation in the body, it's hard for the body to fight off illnesses. Just basic research. Go do it for yourself. There's one thing, because I have an herbologist that I go to, that I see, right? And unfortunately, he recently passed away. It's a whole nother story. But one thing he told me, and I didn't realize, that there's a lot of foods that we eat that they call superfoods that do contain certain levels of trace minerals and vitamins, but cause serious inflammation. And one of them was tomatoes, right? A lot of people think tomatoes are healthy for them. And I went and did some research and some digging, and I found out if you eat too much tomatoes, he was dead on. It could create serious inflammation in the body. That's one food, right? There's a lot of foods that they told us were superfoods that are good for you to eat. Tomatoes is not good. I like tomatoes. I ain't gonna lie. I like tomatoes, but they're not good to eat. They create serious inflammation in the body. And they're not going to tell us any of these things. This is what I'm saying. So the best way for you to protect yourself, listen, I had COVID, right? It's unavoidable. Well, I had what they're calling COVID, right? Right. I tested, but I told you that, guys, that a couple of months ago when I came on, whatever that was, a couple of months ago, right? As I said before, regardless of your take on it, whether you believe it's man-made, is bullshit, it's not, there is something that they put out there, right? And I experienced it, right? My wife's had it twice, right? My sons have been fortunate to avoid it, right? But I recovered. The recovery process is quick if you're taking the right things. And as soon as once I found out, I tested a lot of this stuff. You will recover like a motherfucker. You understand? You will recover like a motherfucker. But it comes with self-educating yourself. Stop depending on these mother. I didn't take anything when I got it. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't get any look, I'm not saying if you have it and they prescribe antibiotics, I want to be clear on that. I'm not telling you don't take it. I'm not a doctor. I got to make that clear. I got to make a disclaimer. But I within a few days I got myself fine. I didn't take any medications or any drugs. I just went to work on boosting the immune system, increasing the D, right? Spearmint tea, which is super healthy for inflammation, right? List goes on and on. I told you guys about NAC. Look into a supplement called NAC, non-acetyl cysteine. I might be saying that last one wrong. For correct neurological responses, right? I told you guys about that. S-acetyl, right, which is an essential amino acid that helps in that whole process, right? Take that every day. Microbarberine with PPPQ. Man, serious shit. That is, shit ain't cheap. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's about 50, 60 bucks a bottle, but it's worth it. It's worth it because, and this was so, man, I could tell you a story behind that, but we need to educate ourselves on these things because there's ways we can take care of ourselves. Now, look, shit can happen. I'm not telling you this is a guarantee that you can't get sick or something can happen to you. But you can do to the best of your ability to do things to prevent certain things is what I'm saying. And if you catch things early before they get out of hand, that's when you have a better chance of fixing things on your own. Now, by all means, I want to make this clear. I only believe medicine is only necessary when it's at a point where you can't do because medicine can get you back to where you need to be. It doesn't cure the problem. People keep forgetting that. It's like putting a Band-Aid over something. It doesn't cure it. But I believe when medicine is positive, if you need to get back to a certain state where you can manage it from that point forward, that's where I think medicine comes into play. So I'm not fully against it. We should try to naturally deal with things to the best of our ability first. But I do believe if you're at a point where you've exhausted all options, I want to be clear, go see a doctor, go get medical attention. There's nothing wrong with being restored back to where you need to be. And then when you're back, do what you got to do. Like one thing I always told people years ago, after you get prescribed a lot of prescription drugs, right? One of the best things you should take after you finish a prescription, if you were sick, is acidophilus. I keep telling people that. Prodophilus is really good because what happens is most prescriptions, especially antibiotics, that's why they call them antibiotics, it strips the body of its natural bacteria that it needs. People forget that. So I always take a probiotics right when you come off of being on a prescription. Because what the probiotics does, it replaces all the good bacteria that was stripped from the body from the antibiotics, right? Most people don't do it. So anytime, and there's been a few times because I've had allergies in the past, respiratory infections where they put me, say, on a Z-Pack, right? And the Z-Pack will clear it up in 5 days. Right after I get off that Z-Pack, which is steroids, that's basically what it is. It's steroids. And that too strips the body. It's antibiotics. I immediately go on a probiotic. Okay. So we it's just part of it is knowing, right? So we got to stay on top of these things. Okay. Yeah, Dr. Vaughn, as I said, I did a post a little bit about a week ago, just giving an update. We were fortunate here on the Southeast coast. We didn't get really hit with anything in the hurricane. So where I'm at is the Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach County border. So pretty much West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami, we were fortunate. We just got brushed with a little bit of tropical weather. Now there was some isolated tornadoes, as I told people, that touched down. And obviously, with a storm system like that, tornadoes, that happens. There's not really you could do about it. But we were fortunate. No damage, no power outages. We just got grazed with a little bit of tropical weather. The southwest coast of Florida, unfortunately, wasn't that fortunate. They got hit pretty hard. Fort Myers, Naples, Estero, Bonita Springs, Sarasota, Cape Coral. Some of those areas got hit pretty bad. When I was, it's funny because I was doing a Patreon class Saturday, I had to cut it short. We were working, my company, we were working, and we were able to secure a couple pallets of water, some portable battery pack chargers, and we brought them out there Sunday. Loaded one of my trucks up, and we took it out there on Sunday. So I saw firsthand, So we were, trying to provide some help to those people, and we were able to do it. So, like I say, fucked up. It had to hit them. Obviously, I wouldn't want that to hit anybody. I've been through a couple, 2 of them since I've been here, since I moved here. I know others have been through worse. It's not a pleasant experience, especially when you grew up in New York your whole life, and you've never experienced a severe one. We had in 2017 was pretty bad. I didn't have power for about a week. But we were fortunate. We were spared. Nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. All right. I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I'll take a couple more. Thing jumped on me. I'm just gonna see what pops out to me. What do you think of I have the Voodoo Gnostic workbook and the works of Michael I can never say his last name. Now, again, he's another person. You have to put your personal likes and dislikes. There's a lot of stuff that circulates, good and bad, about him, about his personal life. I don't know how much of it you can really say is true and speculate. I like the Voodoo Gnostic workbook because it's voodoo and voodoo from a Gnostic approach. It deals more with using the power of your mind. There's a lot of traditional stuff that's omitted. He uses a lot of metaphysics and quantum physics and breaking down. He's got breakdowns on all the different deities in there. The book is broken into sections. It's not a very easy read. It's a very thick read. I actually have I would recommend people at least reading it. But again, it's a very detailed and it's a very big book. If you've ever seen it, for anyone who's read it, I've had it for years now. There's a lot of stuff in there I do like. I do think is legit. I do think it also, the way he presents some of the work in there, it opens up your psychic abilities and your psychic powers. He attacks it from a very metaphysical and Gnostic approach. There's a lot of quantum physics in there too, I will say. You hear the word voodoo or voodoo, just for people that may not be familiar with it, it's not your traditional perspective on voodoo or voodoo. Now he does have sections in there where he talks about it from a folk magic perspective. He does give you that little side to it, but I think he goes very intricate and detailed in there on a metaphysical and sometimes even a quantum physical approach. I would recommend people read it. I don't think it's a book you're going to have to really understand if you're going to use some of the ritual work. And I have in the past. I've utilized some of those concepts. Yes, and the lucky hoodoo work. Yes, he tackles it all. But that's why it's called the Gnostic workbook, because it's it's uncovering Gnosis, or the hidden aspects of some spiritual knowledge of voodoo or voodoo that's not talked about on a traditional level. So yes, I would have to make it clear to those who are not familiar. Do not expect it coming from a very traditional perspective, even though there's some traditional aspects of voodoo talked about in the book, but it's definitely not from a traditional perspective. Yeah. All right, what else we got? All right, I think we're gonna wrap this up. Yeah, the crazy thing, man. That's the crazy thing about it. And that's why it's hard to figure it out. It's almost like a living entity. When my wife had it the first time, the COVID, none of us got it. I didn't get it. My two sons didn't get it. Then we both just got it. She got it the second time, and I got it the same time. Neither one of my sons got it. So go figure. Who knows? You know, all I can say is I don't get caught up in is it real? Is it not? Whether you think it's genetically, there's something there. They did something, right? And I've shared my thoughts. I'm not going to get into it here because they're cracking down on that. So I'm not going to go all into that. But like I say, be proactive. I don't get caught up in all that sensationalism no more. Just long story short, even before COVID, you should have been taking care of your immune system and your health. Okay. Okay. This is not something we should have just started now. I don't understand like this washing hands thing. Oh, wash your hands. Yeah, like nobody was washing their hands, like doing this shit before. I've just always been the type of person. I got a little OCD with it. Like right as soon as I get off this in the next couple of minutes, I go right into the shower because I've been out all day. I've been doing things. I would never get into my bed, being out all day, out and about, without changing my clothes. I was doing that shit long before people act like it's some new shit. That's just me. I'm not judging anybody. Maybe sometimes things happen, so you get so tired. I've just never been a motherfucker to just go in bed in clothes I've been out with all day, or just not shower. That's just me. I mean, I just laugh because do this, wash your hands. Like we wasn't doing that shit before, and people act like some new shit. And I'm just like, nah, I've been doing that shit. I don't need nobody to tell me to wash my ass. Come on, man. Yeah, the blood clotted, and the blood clot and inflammation will cause that. Trust me when I tell you. Okay. Now the jab or the vaccine, do your research on that. And I've talked about that before. Again, we gotta be careful. I don't want to turn this into that. I'm not pro or anti-vaccine. I'm pro-choice. All I'm saying is whatever choice you make sure you're educated on that choice and understand it. And I'm just going to say this quick. I've researched the vaccine. I've researched the ingredients. Also, I would encourage you guys to go research the swine flu vaccine, which they came up with quicker. Remember this, long story short, without getting into all the details and specifics. Remember, a vaccine does not cure you. Okay. People keep getting this confused because I've heard people say dumb shit. How you get the virus and you got the vaccine? I've heard people say that to other people that got the vaccine. I'm like, you're an ignorant bastard. A vaccine just lessens the effects of severe symptoms and it can spare you from death, right? Of a severe illness. It's no different than a flu shot or flu vaccine. It don't mean you can't get the flu. It just lessens the severity of the symptoms. Now, we can get into all the technicals, the reactions of the vaccine. It's going to affect everybody different based on their health, right? This is why some people have claimed they've gotten the vaccine and have no side effects from it because maybe they got better, stronger immune systems, less inflammation in the body, lesser issues with those immune systems, and no severe illness. Then there's some people who've had terrible effects because they have ongoing conditions. And what they didn't tell them was you shouldn't take this. It's not really safe if you have a lot of inflammation in the body. If you have neurological issues, it can cause a lot of effects. So we have to use simple reasoning when it comes to this so-called vaccine, right? And it's not perfect. There's going to be casualties and side effects. So long story short, I won't get into all that because as you know, as this things progress, I don't want to get censored or I said something that I shouldn't have said. Again, I say that be clear because I have to be clear because you don't know who. I'm not pro-vaccine or I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm pro-choice, right? As long as you've made a conscious, educated choice, whatever repercussions come from that, then own up to it. That's it. Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of false positives. Oh, most definitely. I know people who got calls and they were mixing tests up too. People got calls who didn't even take the test and they were telling them they were positive. So I think there was my theories on. I think they were trying to get people on a database, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, there definitely was a bunch of false positive. Yes, blood work is a good way to find out. I at minimum, right? Now as I get older, I do a full checkup at the end of every year, and then I go quarterly just to do blood work for that reason. I see my doctor every 3 months, and I get my blood drawn. I check everything that you're talking about there. And I also get the blood tests that make sure all vital organs are working, which is your kidneys, your liver, all your serious organs. The once a year as men, the prostate. Just want to make that clear. That's very, very important. Your triglycerides and your blood sugar levels should be checked. And sometimes we inherit that genetically, and that's something I got to watch all the time. Mine sometimes can get a little bit high. Triglycerides are important too, understanding that. And it gets harder to control as you get older because there's a connection in relation with your thyroid too. All those things should be checked. And I just did back in July, because it's recommended when you, now I think they lowered it to your mid to late 40s, but I just did my first colonoscopy just to get my colon checked. And, doctor said everything's really good there. Only had 2 polyps, which is normal for somebody my age. They removed it, nothing. But overall, the colon and the intestine tract is good. You should always get that checked. So the next one I got to do is in 5 years. It was just a maintenance thing. But as we get this age, I'm not against medicine for preventative stuff. I want to make that clear. I know someone's, oh man, don't go to the doctor. So this is why I kind of laugh at people. This is why we have to be careful, right? A lot of us, it's no different. Again, and I'm not saying this to criticize anybody who's pro or anti-vaccine, but a lot of the people, these are the same people that have gone to doctors and taken medicine, and they didn't know what the medicine was going to do to them, right? I'm just saying there's two sides to that. But what I'm saying to say is I'm not completely against medicine. I do believe you can use medicine for preventative reasons or to get you back to a restorative state so you can maintain your health on your own. So I think if you have the capability, if you have medical insurance, you can get checkups. You should do blood work. You should get checkups. You should understand what's going on inside your body, especially when we get older. All right. Especially when we're going over, especially when we're getting older. Right. So no doubt. All right, listen, man. I gotta cut this off. Yeah, I see, Brother Taj. I just was going down fast. Fasting. Yeah, we should fast once in a while. Gives the body a break. Because people don't realize how much energy you utilize in digesting a full cycle, which takes roughly 10 to 12 hours. Yeah. Anyway, all right, listen, people, it's late. I got to wrap this puppy up. I got shit to do, and it's already 1:02 in the morning, and I got to get to bed. All right, but other than that, real quick, don't forget, check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. I definitely would look at tier 3. That'll give you access to all the private classes I do on Patreon. I will see some of you guys Saturday, 3:00. We're doing shadow work, not shadow work. We have, I think, the Ancestrial Occult Bible Study class this Saturday at 3:00, class number 6. I don't know where we're at in that, but we got a whole bunch. So those that are on Patreon, I'll see the Patreon family in class on Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I would encourage those that are not Patreon members, check it out, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. If you need a spiritual reading or consultation, it's been going on the ticker at the bottom. You know how to reach me. Send me an email. We'll set something up. And Journey to Black Adam Conference, 5th annual. Now's the time to sign up. If you want to attend live, in person, or virtually, shoot me an email. I'll send you the information on how to sign up. Looking forward to that. That's going to be in 3 weeks. Other than that, I appreciate everybody. Infernal blessings to all, and we will talk soon. Peace out. All right, so let's stop this. All right, that's done.